At the door of the classroom, Lilith, whose color was slightly different from the other students in this school, strode into the classroom, exuding a confident and proud aura just like when she came to class yesterday. Under the gaze of everyone in the class, she walked into the classroom. It wasn't until she almost reached her seat, which was beside Noah, that Lilith realized that the place was full of people. She blinked her eyes in surprise. "Why are you all gathered here?" Everyone looked at each other in dismay. After a while, they all revealed nonchalant expressions. "No, it's nothing." Orange Bar nodded politely at Lilith and then held Ya's hand, whose eyes were moving back and forth between Noah and Lilith. "Then, we'll go back to our seats first." After that, Orange Bar left with Ya, who kept looking back. "Then, we'll go back to our seats too," Kujiryu Totoro said. Just as he was about to leave with Kujisaki Totoro, Lilith's beautiful eyes stared at him with a look of interest. "You're that Esper ability, right?" Jojue didn't seem to expect Lilith to suddenly call out to him. After he reacted, he nodded. "Yes, I'm Jojue." Hee hee. Lilith glanced at Ninefold Totoro, then smiled sweetly. "I'm quite interested in you." "Huh?" Jojue was stunned. "What did you say?" "Don't make me say it again." Lilith stopped smiling and shrugged. "But unfortunately, my double-tripping blade has decided to be Noah." "Jojue, I hope that if there's a chance in the future, let me see your soul." Lilith didn't give Nine Stacks Totoro a chance to reply and just sat down. She looked as though Nine Stacks Totoro would definitely find a chance to show off his blaze in front of her and let everyone see this beautiful girl's willful side. Jojue could only leave with Oki, who was in a bad mood, and returned to his seat with a baffled expression. "Sorry to keep you waiting." Only then did Lilith turn her gaze to Noah with an unchanging confident smile on her face. "It took me a bit of time to get up." Hearing Lilith's words, Noah couldn't help but remember the scene when he woke up. He looked away awkwardly, which made Lilith reveal a sly expression. Listening to Lilith saying that they were like family to Noah, Ivanli, who had the same daily routine as Noah not long ago, was slightly agitated. Julie's ahog on her head also shook as if she was a little shaken. That said, you didn't just take a bit of time, right?" Ivanli tried to cheer up, his voice was obviously cheerful. "The teacher just finished the first class, you're seriously late." "Is that so?" Lilith responded to Ivanli's words casually. "If it wasn't because Noah is here, I wouldn't want to come at all." "You don't want to come?" Ivanli was stunned. "Is this okay?" "I've already finished the high school curriculum." Lilith glanced at Ivanli. "Moreover, even if I don't come, it won't affect anything. I'm special." "Is that so?" Even the talkative and amiable Ivanli didn't know what to say at this time. He could only look at Noah for help. "According to what you said, I don't seem to have to come to class, right?" Noah, who received Ivanli's pleading gaze, could only sigh secretly and suddenly speak. "I've even finished all the courses in university." "Finished the university curriculum?" Ivanli, who received Noah's support, was stunned. Even Julie was stunned for a moment. This time, it was Lilith's turn to show a stunned expression to Noah. However, Noah didn't lie. Still in the world of The Dark Bullet, when Fairy Tail was just established, Fairy Tail didn't have the ability to invite teachers to teach The Cursed Child. In order to teach those children knowledge, Noah crazily absorbed the content of books for a period of time and wanted to teach The Cursed Child himself. As a result, unknowingly, relying on his extraordinary memory and understanding, he completed the university curriculum. Therefore, for Noah, the high school curriculum was basically not difficult. "It seems that you're not lying." After regaining her senses, Lilith looked straight into Noah's eyes. The next moment, with a calm expression, she uttered this sentence without stopping until it shocked him to death. "You're really worthy of being the tripping double blade who shared the same bed with me." The air suddenly froze. Lilith. Noah was caught off guard. Shared the same bed. Ivanli's mouth twitched, and he showed an extremely reluctant smile. So that's how it is, you have already shared the same bed." Julie's reaction was even more intense. "Noah." Julie's dark red eyes also fluctuated. "Have you shared the same bed with her?" Julie. Looking at Julie, who was emitting a terrifying pressure, Noah asked carefully. Are you angry?" Julie didn't answer, but looked straight at Lilith, and then made such a declaration. "Even if you are Noah's tripping double blade, I won't give you the opportunity to share the same bed with Noah." Lilith raised her eyebrows and slowly showed an interested expression. "Are you declaring your sovereignty to me?" Julie stood up, came to the other side of Noah, and directly hugged Noah's arm. "I won't give Noah to you." "Huh?" Lilith narrowed her eyes. "Interesting." Suddenly, extremely intense sparks burst out in the eyes of the two, making Noah's head hurt. Chapter 234. Today's class was particularly lively. Not for other reasons, but because throughout the whole day, whether it was teaching ordinary high school courses, strengthening physical fitness outside, or carrying out combat training courses, Julie and Lilith stuck to Noah's side for the whole day. They didn't let Noah out of their sight for a moment. It was understandable that Lilith stuck to Noah's side all the time. After all, as a double-edged sword, the school supported students to establish a good relationship with their partners. Even the dormitory and seats were arranged according to the double-edged sword unit. Inseparable double-edged sword could be seen everywhere. But in this way, the matter of Julie sticking to Noah's side was worth pondering. Because Julie and Lilith constantly engaged in various verbal confrontations today and kept rubbing against Noah's side, it didn't take long for the real purpose of their actions to spread like wildfire. In order to compete for Noah. That was the purpose of Julie and Lilith. As the saying goes, good things don't go out, bad things spread for thousands of miles. At the age where they liked to gossip, the matter of Julie and Lilith competing for Noah almost spread throughout the school in less than a day, making everyone pay attention to Noah when they saw Noah. Of course, among the students who paid attention to Noah, the girls were just curious and gossipy, but the boys were envious and jealous. Whether it was Julie or Lilith, both of them were not only foreign girls, but also beautiful girls whose appearance was enough to make people stunned. The two girls, one was the quiet moon, and the other was the passionate sun. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were the two most beautiful flowers in the whole school. However, with these two extremely beautiful girls surrounding a boy and starting a battle, which boy wouldn't be envious and jealous? Not to mention the boys, even some girls felt jealous of Noah. If it wasn't for the fact that Noah defeated a rank 3 teacher with the strength of an ordinary person at the entrance ceremony, I'm afraid that today, there would definitely be a lot of trouble to find Noah and teach Noah a lesson. However, Noah could only say that he was innocent. Why did such a situation happen? It wasn't that Noah didn't understand. To some extent, Julie had always regarded Noah as the closest person. The reason was also very simple. It was because Noah gave Julie the feeling of Julie's father. For this reason, Julie felt happy from the bottom of her heart for Noah's doting behavior. She often did all kinds of intimate actions to Noah, as if Noah was the closest family member. Among these intimate actions, Julie's favorite was to sleep with Noah. Because not only could this let Julie feel that she had found her father, but it could also eliminate the uneasiness in Julie's heart that had always been afraid of loneliness and bring Julie a sense of security. For Julie, sleeping with Noah might be the happiest thing in this school. Now, the appearance of Lilith took away the right to sleep with Noah. Julie, who inexplicably had a subtle sense of crisis in her heart, overreacted and confronted Lilith. She even did something that was equivalent to declaring sovereignty. As for Lilith, the reason why she confronted Julie was even simpler. Because it was interesting. This willful miss seemed to think that the interaction with Julie was more interesting than the boring class, so she kept playing with Julie. Among them, it was naturally because Noah was Lilith's tripping double blade. This willful miss was more or less possessive. In this way, Julie and Lilith were against each other for the whole day today. It was fine during the ordinary class, but when it came to the training class, the two girls were all kinds of comparisons and tit for tat. They kept sticking to Noah's side, making Noah really want to say that it was tiring. But this was not the most tiring part. The most tiring part was that because Julie had been sticking to Noah's side, Ivan, as Julie's tripping double blade, could only follow behind Noah. However, he had been looking at Noah with all kinds of cold eyes, fake smiles, and even explicit cold snorts, making Noah feel a lot of pressure. Moreover, for some reason, both Orange Bar and Ye kept a great distance from Noah. Even if they happened to get close to him, they would keep a respectful distance from him, as if they were afraid of being infected by some virus or coming into contact with something dirty. If this was not lively, what was lively? At least, for Noah, today was already lively to the point where it couldn't be more lively. In the end, Noah's patience also reached the limit. Almost all the classes today were announced to be over. Noah didn't even say a word and directly left the classroom, walking in the direction of the dormitory. Originally, Noah thought that if he returned to the dormitory, he could more or less get some relaxation. Unfortunately, even if it was this opportunity to relax, God seemed to be deliberately against Noah, not giving it to Noah no matter what. Sitting on the edge of the small white table in the center of the room, Noah felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Stare dash. The young girl, Sarah, who was dressed in a housekeeper's uniform, was diligently ironing her master's clothes with an iron. However, her eyes were fixed on Noah and did not move away for even a moment. No. Rather than saying that she was staring at Noah, it was better to say that she was glaring fiercely at Noah. That look of deep hatred was just short of directly burning Noah's nose with the iron in her hand until it was as flat as his face. Noah, who endured Sarah's gaze that was as if she wanted to poke 2 holes in his body for half an hour, not only did he not get the relaxation time he hoped to get before returning, but he also felt that his spirit was more seriously exhausted, and he was so tired that he sighed again and again. It was worth mentioning that even though Sarah had been glaring at Noah, she still completed every task perfectly without making any mistakes. Noah, who was in a bad mood, couldn't find a chance to make things difficult for her. If you have any dissatisfaction with me, please say it directly, okay? Noah, who couldn't bear it anymore, could only meet Sarah's fierce gaze and speak with an unhappy tone. Or is it that as Lilith's housekeeper, you are best at arousing the disgust of others and making your master lose face? Sarah's expression became sinister in an instant. This was exactly what Noah wanted to see. As long as this strange housekeeper was angry at him, Noah had hundreds of ways to make the other party mad and vent his anger. However, Sarah only showed a sinister expression, but she was not provoked by Noah at all. She still remained silent without any change. Of course, if Sarah's eyes becoming fiercer was a change, then this change was definitely huge. Noah only felt that he was really unlucky today. It was fine that he was physically and mentally exhausted from being tormented by Julie, Lilith, Ivanli, and others outside, but he still had to suffer when he returned to his room. Could it be that the moonlight glass rabbit was too arrogant this morning, and even the world couldn't stand it anymore, so it summoned Noah's punishment? If this goes on, when Lilith comes back, I won't have time to rest. At that moment, Noah rolled his eyes, made up his mind, and simply stood up. Sarah, who thought that Noah wanted to leave, showed a moment of relief, but in the next moment, Sarah's whole face froze. Because Noah, who stood up, began to take off his clothes directly. Took off his coat. Took off his shirt. Took off his pants. When there was only a pair of shorts left, Noah put his hand on his shorts and made a pulling action. "What are you doing?" Sarah finally couldn't stay silent any longer. She almost screamed at Noah. You shameless bastard. Young Miss liking you is the biggest stain in your life." "What are you talking about?" Noah finally seized the opportunity to take revenge and used all his sarcasm. "This is my room, isn't it normal for me to change clothes in my own room? If you want to change clothes, change in the changing room." Sarah clenched her teeth and squeezed out a voice. It was as if she wanted to tear Noah into pieces, but what she got in return was a light sentence from Noah. "Then, are you sure there are no undergarments that Lilith threw around in the changing room?" Sarah's breath was stuck in her chest. Chapter 235. Lilith was an out-and-out young lady. Even if he only knew Lilith for less than 2 days, even if it was a guess, Noah could guess that Lilith, who liked to be naked even when sleeping, would never specially pack her underwear when changing clothes. As a result, the clothes that Lilith changed yesterday were either cleaned up by Sarah yesterday, or they were still piled up in the dressing room, waiting for Sarah to clean them up. Looking at Sarah's frozen expression, there was no doubt that it was the latter. Noah's mouth slightly raised, and he muttered without a trace. "But you're right. Even if it's in your own room, you still have to go to the dressing room when you change clothes." With that said, Noah also lifted his feet and walked in the direction of the dressing room. Sarah was suddenly shocked. She didn't even have time to put down the iron in her hand and rushed in the direction of Noah aggressively. "Wait!" Hearing Sarah's cry, Noah turned his head directly, and then he was shocked by Sarah's posture of rushing over with the iron in her hand. "Ah!" At the same time, Sarah suddenly staggered and exclaimed. The iron in her hand flew directly into the air, and she fell forward. Noah, who had not expected Sarah to pounce on him, was hit by Sarah, who could not stop in time and fell toward him. Bang dash! He didn't know whether it was the sound of head hitting head or the sound of body hitting body. Paw dash! With a crisp sound, Noah and Sarah rolled into a bowl. They rolled on the floor of the room twice before coming to a stop. In the standard position of a woman on top and a man on the bottom. At this moment, the door of the room was neatly opened. "Humph, Noah, I know you are here. It's not good to hide in the dormitory." Before the word "Duan" could be uttered, Lilith, who had walked into the room in a very valiant manner, could no longer speak. Perhaps, from the perspective of a third party, one would be able to see what was happening in the room. Because Sarah directly rushed in the direction of Noah, the clothes that belonged to Lilith that Sarah had been ironing were inadvertently shaken off. Together with the clothes that Noah took off in order to trick Sarah, they were scattered all over the floor. In the middle of the room full of clothes, Sarah rode on top of Noah, who was only wearing a pair of shorts. Her face was still full of aggression and bared her fangs and brandished her claws. On the other hand, Noah clutched his chest with a pained expression on his face. It was like Sarah wanted to do something to Noah forcibly and took off Noah's clothes. Sarah was stunned. Even Lilith, who had always been confident and proud, was in a mess at this moment. Her beautiful face had an expression as if she had been greatly shocked. I didn't expect that Sarah, who was so loyal and overprotective to me, would actually do something to my tripping double blade. Lilith seemed to be struggling with something. After a while, as if she wanted to escape, Lilith left the room and closed the door. Noah and Sarah maintained the position of the woman on top and the man on the bottom, staring at each other blankly. After a long time, in the room, the voice of a man and a woman sounded at the same time. "It's not like that." After a while, Lilith returned to the room and sat down at her fixed seat at the small white table, drinking a cup of milk tea as if to suppress her shock. "So it was just an accident?" "That's for sure. Miss." Although Sarah was not as agitated as before, her voice was obviously much higher than usual. Obviously, she was quite uneasy in her heart. She even glared at Noah with angry eyes. How could I do something to such a man? Such a man. Lilith blinked. From my point of view, as a man, Noah is quite outstanding. What's wrong with him? Of course. Sarah said without hesitation. This is a person with bad intentions who tried to do something to Mississippi Miss. Please don't fall into his trap. Hearing this, Noah, who had been acting as a listener and listening to the conversation between Lilith and Sarah out of boredom, was enlightened. Could it be that the reason why this housekeeper girl, who had been inexplicably hostile to him since the first time they met, had such a bad attitude towards him, was because of Lilith? Was it because the mistress she served had unexpectedly fallen in love with someone else, and it was a man at that, and as a result, this strange housekeeper had developed hostility towards her? Noah, who understood this, was speechless. Sarah. Lilith seemed to be somewhat helpless. Don't say it as if Noah deliberately approached me. Undoubtedly, the one who deliberately approached him is me. Even so, I think Miss shouldn't take it lightly. Unlike yesterday, Sarah was unexpectedly full of aggression today, as if she had been holding back these words for a long time. The first Miss is the daughter of the Bristol family. With this identity, many people will approach the first Miss with false feelings. Sarah, do you think I can't tell who's trying to get close to me with false intentions? Lilith sighed. In the end, Sarah, it's all because you're overprotective. This is also for the sake of the young mistress. Sarah replied righteously. Noah, who had been watching Lilith and Sarah argue for a long time without coming to a conclusion, rubbed his eyebrows and interrupted. The so-called Bristol family is referring to your family, right? You don't know. Lilith was startled, and then smiled slightly. That's right. Although the Bristol family is very famous in England, not many people in this country know about it. Lilith said as she leaned forward and showed Noah a confident smile. My family is quite famous in England, and my grandfather is the top manager of the company. Is that so? Noah nodded indifferently. Looks like you're really a daughter of a rich family. Is that all? Lilith supported her chin with her hand and stared at Noah. The Bristol Company is one of the investors of the Dawn organization. The investor of the Dawn organization. This time, Noah was surprised, but at the same time, he finally understood Lilith's identity. Needless to say, the founder of Heartwarming Academy was the Dawn organization. As the investor of the Dawn organization, the daughter of the Bristol Company, Lilith was also equivalent to a shareholder of the Academy and the organization. In other words, Lilith not only had the unique blaze, but also had an identity that was directly related to the overall interests of the Dawn organization. Therefore, Lilith was given the title of special. Therefore, Lilith could openly skip classes and use the phrase, I am special, as a response to skipping classes and exercising other privileges in the academy. Then, since you asked me a question, it's my turn to ask you a question. Looking at Noah's relieved expression, Lilith withdrew her smile bit by bit. Her green eyes rippled as a serious expression appeared on her face. You said that you once took someone's life, is that true? The atmosphere suddenly changed. It became a little heavy. Noah met Lilith's gaze. Looking at Lilith's rare serious expression, he said indifferently, Don't worry. What are you going to do after knowing? Are you going to stay away from a dangerous person like me? Whether you are a dangerous person or not, it's up to me, your roommate, to judge, Lilith replied, not to be outdone, and her eyes were fixed on Noah from beginning to end. Or do you think you are a dangerous person? You're right, it's up to you to judge whether I am a dangerous person or not, Noah said calmly and glanced at Lilith. I can only tell you that I have never regretted doing that. Noah drank all the milk and tea in front of him and stood up. I'm going to eat first. After that, Noah turned around and walked out of the room. Looking in the direction of the door, Lilith's eyes flickered, and after a while, the corner of her mouth slowly curled up. A man full of secrets will really make people want to dig them all out. Chapter 236. Sigh. As soon as he walked out of the dormitory, Noah raised his head, looked at the sky, and sighed. Double tripping blade. Eat together. Live together. Sleep together. Play together. Bear all the difficulties and suffering together. This is the double tripping blade in the school. Noah heard that the reason why the school adopted this system of two people as a unit to study together was because when they successfully graduated from this school and entered the Dawn organization's way and unit to work there, they would also be in two people as a unit to carry out missions. Therefore, in order to adapt to this kind of task execution mode in advance, the school adopted this double tripping blade system in an attempt to cultivate the students' sense of teamwork and cooperation, so that they can perform tasks more smoothly in the future. Just from the fact that they ate together, lived together, slept together, played together, endured all the difficulties and hardships together, and also studied together, Noah, Julie, and Evanly formed a temporary, tripping double blade that was quite interesting. However, once he and Lilith formed a formal, double tripping blade system, this kind of atmosphere was gone. Of course, they were still living and sleeping together. However, Lilith, who liked to enjoy the treatment of a young mistress, or rather, who was used to being treated as a young mistress, usually had Sarah prepare the meals and bring them back to the dormitory to eat. Originally, Lilith also asked Sarah to help Noah prepare 3 meals, but that was rejected by Noah, who didn't like to be unique. In addition, because Lilith had finished her high school courses, and because of her self-willed and special relationship, Lilith would not choose to participate in ordinary classes at all. As a result, Noah and Lilith's tripping double-edged sword relationship gave people a feeling that they were neither close nor distant. But that's not surprising. After all, Lilith and Noah formed a double tripping blade system because Noah's blaze was the same type as her blaze. Apart from that, for a strange man whom she had just met for less than 2 days, at least for now, Lilith didn't have the thought of sharing hardships with him, so she wasn't inseparable from him like a double-edged sword. Noah didn't have any objections to this. The rest of the class had basically experienced the temporary double blade tripping and the official double blade tripping for a total of 2 weeks. They had also fought together in the new blade battle, so they had already developed a sense of camaraderie. Lilith, on the other hand, had only transferred to this school yesterday. It had been less than 2 days since she had formed a relationship with Noah. Therefore, there was nothing that could be done about it. It could only be said that Lilith's personal reasons only accounted for a small part, and the rest were objective reasons. I have to think of a way to cultivate tacit understanding and trust with Lilith. Noah couldn't help but say this. He was stunned for a moment and laughed bitterly. Since when did I consider Lilith as a real, double-edged sword? The reason why Lilith and Noah formed the tripping twin blades was because Noah had the same type of blaze as Lilith, so Lilith thought that they were the same kind. But only Noah knew that he couldn't be regarded as Lilith's same kind at all. Therefore, after knowing Lilith's purpose of finding him, Noah was ready to remove the double-edged sword relationship with Lilith at any time. He didn't even think about maintaining the double-edged sword relationship between them. In this way, why should he consider the issue of tacit understanding and trust? At the moment, Noah shook his head and threw the irritated feeling out of his mind. Don't think about it, just let nature take its course. With that said, Noah was just about to walk to the cafeteria, but the next moment, he suddenly stopped without any warning. Under the effect of Noah's sensing ability, an aura just came down from the dormitory behind Noah. He didn't walk down from the gate in a dignified manner. Instead, it slowly slid down along the wall from the top floor as if it had just lurked in the dormitory. It was as if they were lying in ambush for something. Noah suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of the dormitory. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, the other party seemed to have noticed that he had been discovered. He jumped up without hesitation, and after a few ups and downs, he immediately flew outside. Unfortunately, what the other party did was equivalent to telling Noah. He was a person who couldn't be exposed. Bang! Noah turned around, and without even thinking about it, he suddenly stomped on the ground. At the same time, the stone slabs on the ground cracked, and his figure burst out and chased in the direction of the lurker. It was almost dusk now, so the visibility had decreased a lot. However, even with the effect of vision, Noah and the lurker's speed was still extremely fast. They nimbly crossed obstacles one by one and started a chase. The speed of the two clearly exceeded the human limit. This made Noah a little surprised. Could it be that the other party was also a surpasser? Noah narrowed his eyes, and when his body landed on a tree, he suddenly exerted force on his feet and increased his speed to another level, closing the distance between him and the other party. The sound of an attack from behind made the lurker turn around, and a pair of murderous eyes were exposed in the air. Immediately, the lurker's right hand suddenly swung back and pulled out a weapon. It was a gun. A submachine gun. Noah's figure suddenly stopped. Da-da-da-da-da. At the same time, the lurker did not hesitate to pull the trigger of the submachine gun in his hand. It was as if he wanted to overlap all the gunshots, and the bullets formed a barrage that enveloped Noah like a storm. However, before that, Noah, who had stopped moving, raised his right hand, as if he wanted to use it as a club, and swung it wildly to the side. There was a tree there. Bang! The arm that was swung out heavily hit the tree on the side. Wood chips flew up, and the tree immediately snapped and fell in Noah's direction. And it just so happened that the fallen trees completely covered Noah's figure. Bang 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 bang. The next moment, accompanied by a muffled sound of something exploding, the bullets of the submachine gun shrouding Noah all landed on the trees. Amidst the muffled sounds, the bullets kept leaving holes on the fallen trees. As for the lurker, not only did he not slow down for a moment because of the shooting at Noah, but he also used the recoil of the submachine gun to rush out a distance, pulling the distance between him and Noah far apart. You have some skills. Noah, who jumped from behind the tree and landed in front of the fallen tree, stared at the blurred figure that was getting farther and farther away. He sneered, then raised his right foot and stomped heavily on the ground. Bang! The incomparably firm ground was actually shattered by Noah's stomp, as if it had exploded. Gravel splashed up. Noah didn't even look at it. He stretched out his hand and grabbed a piece of gravel in his hand. His body suddenly turned, and his arms suddenly swung forward. Whoosh! The gravel that burst out suddenly cut through the air. Although the speed was not as fast as a real bullet, the sound was sharper than the sound of the bullet breaking through the air just now. It was like a meteor shuttling through, flying toward the lurker with incomparable precision. When the lurker heard the sound from behind, he thought it was a sniper bullet. His body burst out with agility that was absolutely beyond the level of ordinary humans. His running body suddenly dislocated and tilted slightly. With his right foot as a fulcrum, he turned sideways in an incredible arc. At the same time, his body was lowered. Whoosh! The gravel that burst out whistled past the lurker's side, just brushing past the lurker's face and flying backward. Because of this, the lurker just happened to see the object flying toward him at the moment when the gravel flew past him. When he realized that it was just a piece of gravel, there was an obvious look of astonishment in his eyes, and there was a brief pause in his body. Whoosh! The sound of the second gravel cutting through the air sounded. Chapter 237. Bang dash. Following the first piece of rubble, the second piece of rubble hit the lurker's right shoulder. Goo dash. As the gravel shattered, the lurker also let out a muffled groan. The body that was already doing difficult movements suddenly lost its balance, fell to the ground, and rolled a distance of 3 to 4 meters. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Noah rushed out and came in front of the lurker that was still rolling on the ground. When Noah saw the lurker's full appearance, even he couldn't help but be stunned. It was because the other party was completely different from what Noah had imagined. Not only could he not see the face clearly, but he also couldn't tell the specific age. He couldn't even tell whether the person was a man or a woman. The lurker that was rolling on the ground was more than 1.8 meters tall, but its body was wearing a combat suit that looked like a mechanical armor. There was also a helmet on its head. It was just like a robot, and Soren couldn't tell its specific identity at all. However, Noah soon came to the conclusion that the other party was a man. Stinky brat. From within the thick helmet, a male voice that was clearly filled with anger rang out. Immediately afterward, the lurker that was wearing an armor-like combat suit rolled on the ground, stood up, and held the submachine gun in its hand toward Noah. Unfortunately, Noah also reacted from the shock. After seeing the lurker's action, his eyes turned cold. Paw dash. The submachine gun that was just held up by the lurker was instantly swatted away by Noah's hand like swatting a fly. Swoosh. However, at this moment, the lurker's other hand also touched its waist, and it actually took out a cold dagger. It suddenly stood up, and the dagger in its hand drew a cold silver light. Like the fangs of a beast, it fiercely cut toward Noah's chest. Facing the merciless attack from the lurker, Noah hurriedly tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and shifted his body backward by a step. A sound like the sound of something being cut rang out. Pieces of cloth also splashed out. Noah, who took a step back with the fastest speed, was still narrowly grazed by the sharp dagger on his chest. Although he wasn't injured, the uniform on his body was cut by the dagger. If the dagger in the lurker's hand was 5 millimeters longer, this crack that appeared on the uniform would also appear on Noah's chest. Moreover, it was accompanied by a large amount of bright red liquid. Obviously, the opponent wanted to kill Noah directly. Whether it was the previous unscrupulous continuous shots of the submachine gun or this attack, they were all used with the purpose of directly killing Noah. This made Noah's heart finally burst with anger. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll give them a taste of their own medicine. This had always been Noah's most basic action. Since the other party had no intention of showing mercy, then there was no need for Noah to show any mercy. Pang! At that moment, Noah stomped hard on the ground with his right foot, stabilizing his body that was still retreating. His right hand reached out at lightning speed, grabbing the lurker's wrist with great precision and twisting it hard. Gotcha! A hair-raising sound was heard from the lurker's wrist. Ah! The lurker's scream came from the heavy helmet as his arm was twisted in a direction that normal people couldn't twist at all. Whing! At the same time, Noah's other hand was pulled straight behind his back. His clenched fist suddenly shook, and the space around his fist suddenly fluctuated with a burst of gorgeous light spots. They gathered on Noah's fist and instantly condensed into a bright vortex airflow, wrapping Noah's fist in it. In the next second, the fist that was wrapped in a dazzling vortex of airflow was like a beam of light that flashed in space. As Noah swung his fist, it brought along a sharp sonic boom and landed on the lurker's chest. Dong! A muffled thunder-like sound resounded, stirring up bursts of wind, blowing in all directions. Pang! The armored battle suit on the lurker's chest exploded in a moment, exploding into fragments that filled the sky. Shio! Under the terrifying power of Annihilation Strike, the lurker's body that was left with only a tattered battle suit flew out like a kite with a broken string, rubbing against the atmosphere. He flew out and hit a rock wall not far away. His body was embedded in the rock wall. Poochie! Unsurprisingly, the lurker spat out a mouthful of blood, then his head tilted and he fainted. Looking at the lurker who was embedded in the rock wall in a cross like Jesus, Noah exhaled a breath and withdrew his fist that was gradually dimming. He glanced at the torn uniform on his chest, frowned, and then walked in the direction of the lurker. Is he still alive? Arriving in front of the unconscious lurker, Noah quickly heard the extremely weak breathing sound from under the opponent's helmet. His frown became tighter and tighter. Although Noah wanted to use Annihilation Strike as quickly as possible, he did not charge it to the peak, but it still had 60 to 70% of the power of a rank 2 full-strength attack. If such a punch landed on a surpasser, unless the opponent was a rank 4, they would definitely die. Judging from the strength of this infiltrator, the other party had yet to reach the level of a grade 4, at most a grade 3. To be able to survive a Annihilation Strike, with 60% to 70% of its power, the infiltrator's defense was definitely above that of a grade 3. Immediately, Noah's gaze fell on the opponent's tattered, mechanical armor-like battle suit. Is it because of this? After pondering for a while, Noah reached out his hand, wanting to check the opponent's battle suit and see the opponent's true appearance. But at this moment, a somewhat nasty voice sounded. Oh, it's better to leave it to me, exception. Noah's hand paused, his originally tightly knitted eyebrows twisted like a rag when he heard this voice. He raised his head and looked at the cliff in front of him. Over there, the young girl, who was dressed like a bunny girl and a pretty maid, crossed her arms in front of her chest. She stood on the rock wall with a posture that showed she did not care that the scenery under her skirt had already been exposed. She looked down at Noah with a mischievous smile on her face. Still as unscrupulous as always, exception, don't you know how to be merciful? I've already been merciful. Noah retracted his hand, glanced at the girl standing on the cliff, and immediately turned his gaze to the unconscious lurker in front of him. Could it be that he's someone you know? Tsukujiri-sensei. Although I don't know if this rat knows me, I definitely know him. Tsukujiri Bunny smiled, but there was no smile in her eyes. It should be said that I know the person behind him. With that said, Tsukujiri Bunny jumped down. Tsukujiri Bunny roughly grabbed the head of the lurker embedded in the cliff, and pursed her lips. Is it really steel? Steel? Noah, who clearly heard Tsukujiri Bunny's muttering, emphasized his tone. What is that? Well, what is that? Tsukujiri Bunny turned around and pretended to shrug her shoulders. You just need to know that it's something you don't need to know. Is that so? Noah narrowed his eyes and asked in a lukewarm tone. You're already being targeted, and you still dare to say that it's something I don't need to know. Targeted? Are you talking about yourself? Tsukujiri Bunny sneered. You don't have to worry about this, the person this rat is targeting is not you. Not me. Noah was stunned. Let's stop chatting here. Yu Jianli too grabbed the lurker and lifted him up with one hand. Then, he leaped onto the cliff. Remember to pay more attention to your surroundings like today, exception, brat. Leaving this sentence, Tsukujiri Bunny left on her own. Noah stared at the direction Tsukujiri Bunny left in thoughtfulness. Chapter 238. On the way back to the dormitory, Noah tried to search for steel installation on the internet, but the result was some irrelevant search results. For this result, Noah was more or less mentally prepared, but Noah was still a bit disappointed. Sure enough, it's troublesome to be in an unfamiliar world. If it was in the world of fairy tale, with the reputation of fairy tale, and the power of the Union, if he wanted to get any information, even if it was more secretive, he could generally get it. Even in the world of the Black Bullet, there was the intelligence network of fairy tale that gradually expanded its influence to the whole world. Noah only needed to move his mouth to get the information he wanted. But in this world, Noah was alone. Not to mention the big boss of any force, he didn't even have a friend with a little background. In this case, if he wanted to get any more secretive information, it would be a bit troublesome. How about invading the national database again? But that would most likely only get the project name like last time, right? Noah was troubled as he walked. How about, ask Lilith? Since the Bristol corporation behind Lilith could become the investor of the Dawn organization, it proved that its power was extraordinary. So, if he asked Lilith, he might be able to get some answers. After making up his mind, Noah suppressed his conjecture about today's matter and returned to the dormitory. Unfortunately, when he returned to the dormitory, Noah would find out. At the very least, today, he couldn't leisurely talk about serious matters. In the luxuriously decorated room, a depressing silence was pervading. Noah, who had just returned to the room, looked at the scene in the room. The corner of his eyes twitched slightly, and he couldn't stay calm. Not to mention Noah, even Lilith, who was sitting at the small white table, glanced at the bed. After a while, a bitter expression appeared on her face. I didn't expect you to go this far. I underestimated your persistence. Ah, Julie, who was only wearing a white shirt and holding a pillow, sat on the bed with water droplets on her silver hair. It was obvious that she had just finished showering. She stared at Lilith with her deep red eyes, as if she was guarding against something. Even if it's not Noah's double-tripping blade, the right to sleep with Noah will not be given to you. Julie had said this sentence at least 10 times today. It was as if she was telling others about the determination of this expressionless girl, making them speechless. Hey, Noah. Lilith, who did not expect things to turn out this way, sighed again. Can't you think of something? Who was to blame for this? If it wasn't for Lilith's blabbering during the day and going against Julie all the time, how could things have developed to this situation? Noah could only swallow this bitter fruit and looked at Julie with an awkward smile. Julie, didn't Ivan say anything when you came here? Ivan said that if Lilith was here, even Noah wouldn't do that kind of thing, so he didn't come with me. After saying that, Julie tilted her head and blinked her eyes at Noah. By the way, Noah, what is that kind of thing? It's something you don't need to know. Under Lilith's somewhat playful gaze, Noah awkwardly avoided Julie's curious gaze. Did Ivan only say that? Ah, Julie first replied, then she seemed to remember something. However, Ivan seemed to be very angry, and he said that he didn't want to talk to Noah for a while. Noah was silent. What do you want? Lilith seemed to have a headache. You don't want to occupy the bed and not let us sleep, right? We only have one bed. After hearing Lilith's words, Noah suddenly woke up and finally realized a serious problem that had been ignored by him. In this room, there was only one bed. The standard bunk bed in the dormitory had been replaced by a luxurious double bed under Lilith's orders. Therefore, yesterday, Lilith slept with Noah. Therefore, in the future, Noah and Lilith would still sleep together. Lilith. Noah's voice suddenly raised. As you said, there is only one bed, how can we sleep? Allah, just like yesterday. Just sleep together. Lilith didn't take this matter seriously at all. She curled her lips and looked at Noah with interest. No matter what, you are my tripping blade. Just treat it as a special right for you. I don't need it. The person who said this was not Noah, but Julie, whose hair on her head stood up. Noah just needs to sleep with me. That won't do. Lilith retorted. Noah is my tripping blade. Even if he wants to sleep, he will sleep with me. Then I will join too. Julie said such a sentence with a blank expression. I want to sleep together too. Hearing this, Noah and Lilith understood. They understood why Julie had to bring a pillow. Julie had already planned for a long time. The night came quietly. Noah, Noah. Julie, who had been sitting on the bed with a pillow, pulled the corner of Noah's clothes, raised her head, and said eagerly like a cute little animal eager to be fed. "It's time to sleep." "Yeah." The smile on Noah's face was a bit distorted. "It's like announcing a death sentence, Julie tilted her head in confusion. "I didn't object to you sleeping with us." Lilith, who was sitting in her exclusive seat and drinking milk tea, closed her eyes. She was wearing pajamas and exuded a leisurely aura. "However, this doesn't mean that I will give Noah to you." Julie directly ignored Lilith's words and still pulled Noah's clothes. Her deep red eyes were fluctuating with the light of expectation, making Noah, who still wanted to find an excuse, feel defeated. Sigh. Noah could only sigh, reach out, and touch Julie's head. "I really don't know what to do with you." Julie's cheeks were slightly rosy, and there was a look of enjoyment in her eyes. Anyone with a discerning eye could see her mood at this time. "You spoil this child too much, right?" Lilith seemed to be dissatisfied and muttered like this. Immediately, she put down the empty teacup and stood up. "Forget it, let's go to sleep. I still have something to do tomorrow." After saying that, without giving Noah and Julie time to answer, Lilith suddenly turned around and took off her clothes. "Wait." Noah, who inadvertently glanced over, almost stared his eyes out. After he reacted, he hurriedly said, "Lilith, what are you doing?" Even Julie's face was slightly red, and she seemed to finally know how to be shy. On the contrary, Lilith, who was directly involved, didn't even turn her head and said matter-of-factly, "What do you think I'm doing?" "Of course, it's sleeping, isn't it? Why are you taking off your clothes when you're sleeping?" Noah's voice had changed. "Didn't I say earlier?" Lilith didn't have the slightest hesitation because of Noah's presence and said calmly, "I won't be able to sleep with clothes on." While speaking, Lilith took off all her pajamas. Her fair skin and slender back instantly entered Noah's vision, revealing her amazing charm. Noah, who didn't have time to stop her, turned his head to avoid Lilith's direction, but soon his eyes widened again. He saw that Julie, who was staring at Lilith with a slightly red face, stared at Lilith for a while, then unbuttoned her shirt and removed the only thing covering her body. The moment Noah's tender body entered his eyes, he was dumbfounded. Then, Julie's voice sounded. "I can't lose either." Intuition told Noah. Tonight, taking the initiative would make him completely insomnia and unable to sleep. Chapter 239. When the sun shone into the room, Noah, who was lying stiffly on the bed, finally breathed a long sigh of relief. "Og, who?" On the left and right sides of Noah, two sweet breathing sounds came one after another, as if they were alternately playing a very pleasant piece of music. From time to time, there would be some soft humming sounds, which made people think of elegance. Unfortunately, it was these breathing sounds and soft humming sounds that made people think of elegance that tortured Noah for the whole night, making him unable to sleep all night. Without careful observation, it could be seen that on Noah's body lying on the bed, two slender arms were hugging Noah's neck, and the other was resting on his chest. Og. With vague soft humming sounds, the owners of the two arms were tightly attached to Noah's body. A soft touch and beautiful feeling that was difficult to describe with words surrounded Noah in almost 360 degrees, constantly stimulating Noah's nerves. In addition, the sweet breathing was constantly hitting Noah's neck, and the golden and silver hair were more or less scattered on Noah's body. If it was another healthy man, who would be able to sleep peacefully in such an environment? Noah could only rely on his strong willpower to endure this night that was all kinds of torture for him. His body and mind were extremely tired. If it wasn't for the Dawn Star rune that strengthened Noah's spirit by a lot, Noah would have been too tired to move now. And Julie and Lilith, who caused Noah to spend such an uncomfortable night, were sleeping very soundly. Although they were covered with a quilt, their delicate bodies under the quilt tightly sandwiched Noah in the middle as if they had made an agreement, ignoring the feelings of a healthy man like Noah. In fact, it couldn't be said that Julie and Lilith didn't care about Noah's feelings. After all, no matter how Julie treated Noah as a relative, she still had a sense of shame. Lilith seemed to be very bold, but in fact, she was not so open as to be naked in front of a man she only knew for 2 or 3 days. Because of this, last night, Julie and Lilith wrapped themselves tightly with the quilt after taking off their clothes, then they slept peacefully. The problem was that these two girls, who were charming in all aspects, were too comfortable, and they seemed to be extremely insecure. After falling asleep, they immediately used a method that even Noah couldn't break free from. Not only did they treat Noah as a pillow, but they also only used their bodies to bind him. As a result, Noah didn't even sleep for a second all night. "I don't know if I did something wrong that you gave me such a punishment." Noah, who was tightly sandwiched in the middle by 2 beautiful foreign girls, could only support his tense body and murmured such a sentence as if he wanted to cry but had no tears. It can't be helped. Noah must use various methods to divert his attention. Otherwise, forget about Julie. The feeling of Lilith's plump body clinging to his body was enough to drive Noah crazy. In any case, the night finally passed, and Noah must find a way to get away. Otherwise, when Sarah came to the room and saw her master clinging to Noah in such a way, it would probably cause a lot of trouble that would make Noah even more tired. After struggling for a while, Noah chose the most direct method. Lilith. While paying attention not to touch the places on Lilith that shouldn't be touched, Noah called Lilith in a pleading voice. "Wake up, it's already dawn." "Woo." Lilith frowned slightly, and after a soft groan, there was no sign of waking up. Noah already knew that Lilith was not good at dealing with the morning. Whether it was before or now, the morning was the time when Lilith was least prepared, and it was also the most difficult time for Lilith to survive. So, if this continues, Noah feels that he will be tortured to madness. He may really not be able to hold on and be tortured to a mental breakdown. Lee. See. Noah couldn't care so much. He shook Lilith desperately without any gentlemanly demeanor, trying to wake Lilith up. "Wake up for me. If you don't wake up, I'm leaving." And Lilith didn't know if she was scratched, but she let out a lazy sound. Her eyebrows trembled, and she slowly opened her misty eyes. "Ha." After a cute yawn, Lilith rubbed her eyes and stared at Noah quietly for a while. Then, as if her brain had finally woken up, she said weakly, "I'm sorry, Noah." "What?" "So it's Noah. It's best that you know it's me." Noah's voice sounded even weaker than Lilith's. "So, Lilith, should you let go of me?" Lilith realized her current state and was stunned for a moment, but she didn't let go as she was told. Instead, she raised her head and showed Noah a dazed smile. "Are you happy?" "I'm not happy." Noah responded with hatred and forcefully pulled his hand out of Lilith's arms. However, such a violent action directly caused Noah's arm to rub heavily on Lilith's body. "Ah." Suddenly, Lilith seemed to feel itchy, and she twisted her body uncontrollably. Immediately, as if all the strength in her body was drained, she fell into Noah's arms when he pulled his hand out. Noah, who hugged Lilith, couldn't help but feel his heart shake fiercely, and he cried out. Yes. I'm sorry. Ugh. Julie, who was lying on the other side of Noah and was also leaning on Noah's body, seemed to be disturbed and twisted her body slightly. As a result, Noah felt his other hand rubbing against something again. His voice was suppressed in his throat all of a sudden, and his chest hurt. Idiot. Lilith, who saw this scene, had a helpless expression on her face. She pressed the sheet covering her body, sat up, and stretched. The infinite beauty was blocked by a thin sheet. But even so, Lilith's action still exposed her smooth back to Noah's eyes, and the curves of her body were unreservedly displayed. Although it wasn't the first time Noah saw Lilith's beautiful body because of their interactions during this period of time, Noah still felt a little awkward to look at a girl's naked body so confidently. In desperation, Noah could only turn his head to the other side. However, Noah had obviously forgotten about it. On the other side of him, another girl who was not inferior to Lilith was lying there. Not only was her hands tightly hugging Noah's neck, but her head was also leaning on the place closest to Noah. When Noah turned his head, the distance between him and Julie's doll-like delicate face was infinitely close, and their lips almost touched. Noah. Julie seemed to have felt Noah's breath. After murmuring, her other hand also hugged Noah's body tightly. Her whole body snuggled into Noah's arms, and her face rubbed against Noah's face. If Noah didn't turn his head away in time, Julie's lips would have touched Noah's lips just now. Hee. Lilith glanced at Noah, who was tightly hugged by Julie and didn't dare to move. His eyes were also trying not to move in her direction. Lilith smiled slyly. If I wake this child up now, will something more interesting happen? Please don't make trouble, Mississippi, Noah said tiredly. You probably don't know what state I'm in now, right? I'm already very tired. Please let me go. You can't be tired now. Lilith's beautiful face reappeared with the usual confident expression. Today, you have to accompany me to a place. Noah was stunned. What did you say? Don't make me say it again. With this incomparably arrogant sentence as an answer, Lilith wrapped herself in the sheet and got off the bed, leaving Noah with a bright smile. That's a very special place for me. Chapter 240. In the clear sky, a helicopter with a fuselage made of cold steel slowly landed in the open space in front of an amusement park amidst the whistling of the propeller. The surrounding tourists didn't seem to have expected a helicopter to suddenly land around them. They looked at each other and pointed at the helicopter that landed on the ground, causing quite a lot of noise in the surroundings. Under such circumstances, the door of the helicopter was opened, and a man and a woman also got off the helicopter. No. To be more precise, it should be said that a girl pulled a boy of the same age out of the helicopter in a way that was almost dragging him. Did you see it? Did you see it? In an extremely excited tone, the girl pointed at the amusement park not far away and shouted loudly at the boy under the amazed and surprised gazes of the surrounding tourists. Chanute Amusement Park. It's Chanute Amusement Park. I know. You've been shouting this sentence since you were on the helicopter. You've shouted it more than 10 times. Those who don't know already know it. The boy covered his head and shouted back with an irritated face. Obviously, he was also annoyed. Isn't it just an amusement park? Why are you so excited? This is not an ordinary amusement park. It's Chanute Amusement Park. The girl didn't even turn her head. She looked in the direction of Chanute Amusement Park with sparkling green eyes, and her tone was full of happiness. I've dreamt of coming here at least once. What are you talking about? The boy said with a speechless expression. An amusement park can make you say something like, I want to come here even in my dreams. Isn't your family's Bristol company very powerful? As the daughter of a president, are you afraid that you don't have a chance to go to an amusement park? There is no Chanute Amusement Park in the UK. The young lady, who was called the daughter of the president by the boy, turned her head and glared at the boy who kept pouring cold water on her with dissatisfaction. So, long before I came to Japan, I decided to come here once. The visitors were naturally Noah and Lilith, who came out of Holang Academy. Today was not a holiday. That was to say, when Noah and Lilith came to the amusement park, the academy should be in class now. In other words, Noah and Lilith were now skipping class. Originally, due to the uniqueness of Howling Academy, if it was not a holiday, it was difficult for the students to come out of the artificial island where only one monorail train could enter and exit. The teachers in the academy would not allow the students to go out at this time. Unfortunately, the person who decided to go out wasn't some ordinary student, but the daughter of the president of the Bristol Corporation, one of the investors of the Dawn organization, and the one who had the title of Special, Lilith. Lilith's very special identity allowed her to enjoy privileges that other students and teachers did not have in the school. She also had a helicopter as a means of transportation. Therefore, under Lilith's lead, Noah could be considered to have openly skipped class to come out and play. Of course, he had dragged Noah over without his consent. Sigh. After getting off the helicopter, Noah let out a melancholy sigh. When Julie wakes up and finds herself alone, she must be very lonely, right? I'm already here, and you're still thinking about other girls. The dissatisfaction on Lilith's face became more and more intense. I'm the only one here today, you're not allowed to think about others. He didn't know if it was because she had come to Hennia's paradise that she had always dreamed of, but today, Lilith felt that she had lost some of her usual willfulness and confidence, and had more of the appearance of an ordinary girl. Hearing Lilith's words, Sarah, who flew the helicopter as the driver and sent Noah and Lilith here, spoke with an unhappy expression. Miss, I'm here too. Of course, I didn't forget Sarah. Lilith smiled at Sarah. It's just that today is the day I deepen my relationship with my tripping double blade, so Sarah doesn't have to come. WH. No. Young mistress. Sarah protested vehemently. Objection overruled. Sarah. Lilith, on the other hand, used an even more resolute tone to block Sarah's words. Don't make me say it a second time. Lilith hugged Noah's arm and walked forward quickly while pointing to the front and making a go gesture. Let's go. To Henno Amusement Park. With that said, Lilith completely ignored Sarah's anxious shout behind her. She pulled the powerless Noah and ran forward happily. Being carried by Lilith, Noah, who had no power at all, could only let Lilith run. He could clearly feel the angry gaze from the direction of the helicopter pilot's seat behind him. He let out a second sigh faintly. Are you just going to leave the maid who is loyal to you? Sarah is not a maid. She's a butler. Lilith was like a happy bird that broke out of the birdcage, and the smile on her face was the kind of sweetness and innocence that came from the heart. And, if Sarah comes with me, that overprotective child won't even let me ride the roller coaster. I can't stand it, so I can only leave her behind. Hearing this, Noah could only sigh secretly for the third time. When he was about to say something, he suddenly turned his head and looked to the side. Over there, a group of men and women who looked like lovers and family members were still saluting Noah and Lilith with their eyes. When they saw Noah turn his gaze toward them, they immediately backed away in a secretive manner. However, even if the tourists retreated, Noah still looked in that direction, looking at the corner of a building in front of him without moving his gaze. What's wrong? Lilith, who was hugging one of Noah's arms, suddenly stopped in her tracks. She looked at Noah and stopped as well. Dissatisfaction once again appeared on her face. Didn't I tell you not to think about other things? After saying that, Lilith no longer paid any attention to Noah. She directly dragged Noah and walked toward the entrance of Chanel Park. Today is a special date for you, you should enjoy it. Noah walked forward with Lilith's strength, glancing at the corner from the corner of his eyes. After a while, he smiled indifferently, turned his head, and walked into Henno Amusement Park with Lilith. While Noah and Lilith walked into Henno Amusement Park, in the corner that Noah was previously looking at, a few black shadows suddenly flashed and disappeared into the crowd. Henno Amusement Park was an amusement park with the theme of a dark fairy tale. Not only did it have the facilities that ordinary amusement parks had, but it also added the theme of a dark fairy tale. While entertaining, it also gave people a sense of thrilling horror and fantasy. Among so many amusement facilities, Lilith, who was in high spirits, preferred shooting games. It was a game that allowed tourists to sit in a position that moved with the track and enter a haunted house-like facility. They used toy guns that could shoot lasers to shoot at the monsters that appeared one after another along the way. Finally, when they came out of the haunted house, the score was calculated. Participating in this type of game, if the score was high, they could get toys of the theme of this amusement park. These toys had no collection value at all for Noah, but for Lilith, they were as important as treasures. Therefore, Noah was dragged into this facility by Lilith, who had a want look in her eyes. Regardless of whether it was Noah or Lilith, in a situation where even Blaze was a gun, it was naturally impossible for them to miss the target. So, in the end, not only did Noah and Lilith break the previous record, but their score also exceeded the previous record by more than 2 times, which made the staff exclaim, "Sir, you and your girlfriend are really amazing." Lilith, who took the prize from the staff, was stunned together with Noah. Then, Lilith said with a smile, "Of course, after all, it's my most important partner." This so-called partner must be referring to Tripping Double Blade. But in the ears of the staff who didn't know the situation, this so-called partner was literally the meaning. Right away, the figure giggled at Noah's helpless face. "Did you hear that? Most important partner, sir." Noah rolled his eyes, causing Lilith and the staff to laugh like silver bells. Chapter 241. Time passed by little. Under the leadership of Lilith, who was always in high spirits, Noah ran through more than 1/3 of the amusement facilities in the entire Newfoundland in half a day. In this 1/3 of the amusement facilities, Noah and Lilith played more than a dozen games. When it was almost time for lunch, Lilith had no intention of stopping at all. Realizing that he might have to play with Lilith until dark, Noah first raised his hand to surrender. "If you keep running around, you'll use up all of your stamina." With this as a reason, Noah broke away from Lilith's hand, who had been hugging his arm, and slowed down his footsteps. "Let's walk slowly, or you can go play by yourself." Lilith, who wanted to say something because Noah slowed down his footsteps, couldn't utter a word at once. The excited expression on her face eased a lot. She followed Noah's leisurely footsteps, walking slowly while uttering unpleasant words. "You're right. You're right. A man who only knows how to pour cold water on the opposite sex will not be popular. A woman who only causes trouble for the opposite sex will also be hated," Noah said angrily. "Besides, I'm already giving you face by not leaving directly. I didn't say that I won't play with you. I just want you to slow down. That's not too much, right?" "Oh." Lilith stared at Noah with her beautiful green eyes, and after a while, she smiled inexplicably. "It's really rare." Noah was puzzled. "What is rare?" "Everything about you is rare." Lilith looked at Noah intently and said so. "Before you, those who were around me, whether men or women, whether elders or children, they would not speak to me in such a non-negotiable tone. Have you always been so dominant? Maybe I do like to take the initiative subconsciously." Noah pondered for a while and gave such an answer. "After all, instead of being led by the nose by others, I prefer to take the initiative. It can't be said that I must be above others, but if there is no leeway, then I will be very uncomfortable." While saying such a sentence, Noah also curled his lips. "Besides, let's not talk about whether I'm strong or not for the time being. Lilith, the people around you that you mentioned might have some thoughts. They just hid their voices in front of you, the daughter of the president of the Bristol Company. The implication was that it was not that those who were active around Lilith would not speak to her in a domineering tone, but that they could not speak in such a domineering tone. Because Lilith was the daughter of the president of the Bristol Company, she was the target that they must please. "So, I don't hate this place of yours," Lilith replied calmly, but after a while, she burst into laughter. "Choosing Noah as the tripping double blade is great. I wonder what kind of person that 9 layers Flo is." "What's wrong?" Noah asked casually. "Are you interested in Ninefold?" "More or less." Indeed, even if Lilith will strip naked in front of Noah, at most, she will show her back and buttocks generously. She won't let Noah see her front, and she will wrap herself in a quilt when she sleeps. But Noah wanted to say that he really couldn't see it, but she directly squeezed herself on him and let him feel it. Isn't that worse than seeing it naked? "I have a lot of opinions on this issue to you, but let's leave it for next time. Don't you want to know the purpose of my visit to the haunted house?" Noah's tone suddenly changed, and he turned his head and looked behind him. "I just think that since the guests like to secretly hide in the dark to observe us, they must not want to be discovered by others. So, if we find a place where there is no one, shouldn't the guests appear?" The smile on Lilith's face suddenly froze, and then it slowly disappeared. Standing beside Noah, her green eyes were filled with awe-inspiring spirit. Together with Noah, she looked straight ahead. Clap, 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 clap. Almost at the same time, there was a burst of clapping sound. Sure enough, we were discovered. Should I say that they are indeed the surpassers created by Blaze Diabolica? With such a sentence, several figures slowly appeared in front of Noah and Lilith with extremely heavy footsteps as if there was steel under their feet. What appeared in front of Noah and Lilith was a team of about 10 people. When such a 10-person team appeared in front of Noah and Lilith, Lilith showed a stunned expression, but Noah's pupils suddenly shrank. This was because everyone in the 10-man squad was wearing battle suits and helmets that were made of mechanical steel. That posture was exactly the same as the lurker who was discovered and defeated by Noah when he was lurking in the dormitory in the school. Lilith stared at the 10-person team that formed a circle in front of her and frowned. "Who are you?" As soon as the words fell, behind the 10-person team in front of Noah and Lilith, another tall person who was also wearing a combat suit stepped forward and took off the helmet. Chapter 242. Standing in front of the 10-man squad wearing battle suits, it was obvious that he was the leader of this squad. He took off his helmet, revealing a handsome face. It was a face that belonged to the West. The other party was a handsome man from the West. "I don't have a real name anymore. You two can call me K. That is my code name, and also my current name." The handsome man who called himself K had a leisurely and courteous smile on his face. He didn't even look at Noah. He only looked at Lilith and slightly bowed. "Miss Lilith Bristol, on behalf of Equipment Smith, I would like to extend my greetings to you." Equipment Smith. The unfamiliar term made Noah squint his eyes and look in Lilith's direction. Lilith's calm and beautiful face finally showed a slight change. The way she looked at Kay and the 10-man squad behind him also changed. If it was said that Lilith previously only felt curiosity and amusement towards Kay and the 10-man squad he brought with him, then after Kay revealed his name, Lilith truly became wary of Kay. Obviously, the other party was an opponent that even Lilith couldn't help but be wary of. At the same time, Lilith also seemed to know why these people in front of her were looking for her. Her green eyes gradually flashed with a dangerous light. "What kind of trouble does that troublesome old man plan to bring us again?" "You are mistaken, Miss Bristow." Undoubtedly, the words used were very polite and modest. However, Kay had a smile full of aggressiveness on his face. It made people involuntarily vigilant, but at the same time, they couldn't help but feel angry. That sir only wants to invite you over to our side for a chat. He doesn't mean anything else. Doesn't mean anything else. Lilith rarely spat out sarcastic words. Are you sure? Of course. Kay said without a change in expression. As long as you're obedient. Hearing this, Noah, who had been silently listening to the conversation between Lilith and Kay, finally understood. These people in front of him wanted to kidnap Lilith. So that's how it is. In front of Kay, who hadn't turned his gaze towards him, Noah smiled. That black-bellied rabbit said that the one being targeted wasn't me, but told me to pay attention to my surroundings. So it was referring to Lilith who was being targeted. Without a doubt, the lurker who wore the same combat uniform as Kay, and the 10-man squad behind him was definitely on Kay's side. And the other party's reason for lurking in the dormitory was to find an opportunity to kidnap Lilith, or to investigate Lilith's information and pass it back to these accomplices to support their actions. Later, the spy probably noticed the extraordinary relationship between Noah and Lilith, so he tried to get hold of Noah's information. He even blackmailed Noah to achieve the goal of making Lilith submit. In the end, Noah discovered him and counterattacked. Noah. Lilith didn't expect Noah to suddenly say such a thing. She was at a loss. Ha! Across from him, Kay cast his gaze on Noah for the first time and touched his chin. According to reliable information, the person who had infiltrated Heartwarming Academy with great difficulty to spy on Miss Bristol was discovered yesterday and captured alive. Could it be that you were the one who discovered us? Hearing this, Lilith was slightly shocked, and then looked at Kay with some anger. You actually sent someone to spy on me. You were too careless, Kay said nonchalantly, even reminding him out of kindness. You only brought a butler with you when you came to Heartwarming Academy, and today you only brought a classmate with you. Isn't this telling us that we can make a move on you at any time? Lilith took a step forward, but before she could do anything, Noah pressed down on her shoulder. What's their goal? Noah still looked ahead and asked Lilith. What's their goal in kidnapping you? Their real goal isn't me. Lilith looked coldly at Kay and explained. Their real goal is the Dawn organization, and their real goal should be to obtain the Dawn star pattern. I'm probably just a hostage they're using to negotiate with the Dawn organization. As the daughter of the president of the Bristol Corporation, if they kidnapped Lilith, these people could indeed use Lilith as a hostage to negotiate with the Dawn organization. After all, not only was Lilith an individual with a special research result in the Dawn organization, namely the special Blaze, but her own company was also the investor of the Dawn organization, so her identity was very special. Originally, obtaining that witch would have been the best result, but the witch's bodyguards are too tight, so we could only make a move on you since your guard is relatively lax. Regarding this, Kay did not hide it but corrected her with a smile. Furthermore, what are you talking about? That lord is also very interested in you. Since they wanted to obtain the Dawn star pattern, then the people behind them definitely wanted to steal the research results of the Dawn organization. Lilith was a special individual in this so-called research result. If they were interested in the Dawn star pattern, then they would definitely be interested in Lilith. This was not strange. It was conceivable that if Lilith fell into the hands of these people, then it would not be strange if the people behind them directly captured Lilith and dissected her for research. Please don't resist. Saying this, Kay raised his hand. Suddenly, in a series of subtle mechanical sounds, the 10-person team behind Kay raised a submachine gun in their hands and aimed it at Noah and Lilith. We've received orders to be a little rough here, and it just so happens that your classmate is here. If he brings back the information that you're with us, we can save a lot of trouble. Kay's smile became dark. Please don't resist. After saying this, under KS signal, two people wearing combat suits walked towards Noah and Lilith. The others still held their guns and aimed at Noah and Lilith. It was believed that as long as Noah and Lilith made any meaningless movements, the triggers of these submachine guns would immediately be pulled. At that time, not to mention Noah, even Lilith's hands and feet would be pierced, and her ability to resist would be eliminated. However, whether it was Noah or Lilith, they were not the kind of people who would be captured without a fight. Especially Noah. After all, Noah always did not like to give the initiative to others. Lilith. As if ignoring everyone present, Noah asked with a relaxed face. How many can you deal with? This sentence directly stunned everyone present, and for a moment, they actually did not react. Kay also frowned slightly, and the gaze he used to look at Noah gradually turned cold. Only Lilith, after being stunned for a moment, smiled sweetly. If they were just ordinary people, even if they were well-trained soldiers, 100 of them would not be my opponents, but they don't seem to be ordinary soldiers. That black-bellied rabbit called the thing on their body's steel installation. I think they should be able to rely on that thing to reach the same level as surpassers, Noah said as if there was no one else present. So, it's best to treat them as existences that surpass humans. Is that so? Lilith brushed her bright-colored long hair. Then how many can you deal with? Me? Noah laughed, and laughed as if he was mocking his opponent. Although I won't say that 100 of them are not my opponents, 10 or 20 of them are not a problem. The 10-man team wearing steel installation all let out angry gasps and raised the guns in their hands. Kay looked coldly at Noah, and he raised his hand and waved it down without hesitation. Thus, the 8 people standing behind him and the 2 people who approached all pulled the triggers of the submachine guns in their hands. Da-da-da-da-da. In the next moment, along with the flames, the muzzles of every submachine gun spat out fatal bullets, forming a barrage that cut through the air like a giant net, enveloping the front. Chapter 243. Da, 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 da. The sound of the submachine gun firing seemed to have turned into an echo that constantly lingered above the haunted house's cemetery. Along with the flames, bullets shot out from the submachine gun and rained down on Noah like a storm. Under the cover of the rain of bullets, even a surpasser with a relatively low level would not be able to dodge. If one wanted to see the trajectory of the bullets, one would need to be at least level 3 to be able to do something. Even Noah, whose abilities were suppressed to level 2 under the effect of limit, was still unable to clearly see the trajectory of the bullets, let alone clearly see the storm of bullets coming from the submachine gun barrage. However, it did not matter if he could not see the trajectory of the bullets, because Noah still had his sensory ability. Under the effect of Noah's sensory ability, the position of every bullet that was enveloped like a giant net was clearly imprinted in Noah's mind, constantly triggering Noah's nerves. Therefore, when Lilith's body tensed up due to the other party's shooting, and her beautiful face began to waver, Noah had already moved. Almost before the gunshots could be heard, a crisp, paw sound rang out first. It was the sound of Noah suddenly reaching out and grabbing the top of a tombstone in the fake cemetery next to him. Tightly grasping the top of the fake tombstone, Noah coldly shouted, and pulled the tombstone out of the ground with force. Who? In the next second, under the movement of Noah's arm, the huge tombstone turned into a huge shadow, bringing a gust of wind. Like a mountain, it pressed down in front of Noah. Ding 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 ding. Bright sparks splashed out from the tombstone that turned into a huge shadow, and the surface of the tombstone made a series of crisp knocking sounds. Not only did it block all the bullets from the submachine gun, but it also flew out without any reduction in momentum. Like a rock, it fiercely smashed in the direction of Kay and the others. Everyone, including Kay, was shocked. They didn't have time to think. Other than Kay, who quickly retreated, the others all rolled on the ground in a sorry state. Dong! The tombstone, which was not small in size, heavily smashed into the ground. In the midst of the explosion, it shattered into pieces and stirred up a cloud of dust. Just as the group of people wearing combat suits hurriedly jumped up from the ground, a man and a woman's voice rang out. Blaze! The voice calling for souls echoed, the brilliant light of the star pattern flickered. Bang! Dense red flames abruptly ignited in the air, transforming into two pitch-black weapons that fell into the hands of their respective owners. It was a gun. It was a revolver with a large caliber and a unique rifle that had clearly been modified. Bang 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 bang. Completely different from the sweeping shots of submachine guns, the heavy gunshots that made people's hearts skip a beat rang out one after another. Og! Og! Ah! Accompanied by the sound of gunshots, every time a gunshot rang out, a person wearing a combat suit would let out a mournful cry. The submachine gun in his hand slipped from his hand and heavily fell to the ground. He didn't even struggle for a few moments before he was no longer able to move. There were a total of 7 people who fell. Other than K, a total of 7 out of the 10-man team wearing combat uniforms had fallen. The other 3 people's reactions were too slow. They hadn't stabilized from their rolling state and stood up. Instead, the bullets that were shot at them hit the ground where they had just rolled a second ago, allowing them to escape death. K, on the other hand, realized that something was wrong when he retreated because of the tombstone. He dodged and hid behind a fake dead tree to avoid the incoming bullets. Thus, when the 3 people finally stabilized their bodies after rolling on the ground and stood up, they couldn't help but be shaken when they saw their fallen comrades. This, not good. Captain. Hearing the shouts of his 3 subordinates, Kay's face was calm. Through the dead tree that was used as a cover, his cold gaze shot straight at Noah and Lilith, who were aiming at his 3 subordinates. His back was slightly bent down, like a beast that had discovered its prey. Noah, who had focused his attention on Kay, used his perception ability to sense that something was wrong. The movements of his hands suddenly stopped. Noah's keen combat experience told him that Kay was a truly difficult opponent to deal with. Bang bang bang. However, Lilith, who didn't have Noah's sharp perception, naturally focused most of her attention on the 3 people in front of her who had raised their guns. The corner of her mouth curved up, and the rifle in her hand continuously shot at the 3 people. Pang! It was also at this moment that Kay, who was hiding behind the dead tree, heavily stomped his foot. His body was like an arrow leaving a bow as he flew out and instantly appeared in front of Lilith. Swoosh! In the midst of the tearing sound in the air, 2 short knives suddenly appeared in Kay's hands. With a spin, they brought about a fatal cold light as they fiercely chopped down at Lilith. Under Kay's powerful chop, in the air, an ear-piercing sonic boom continuously sounded. Noah, who was already on guard against Kay, narrowed his eyes. Just as he was about to make a move, the next scene that happened made him stop in his tracks. A surprised expression appeared on his face. Lilith's green eyes revealed an expression of astonishment. It was obvious that she was caught unprepared by Kay's sudden ambush. However, Lilith didn't panic. Instead, she suddenly raised the rifle in her hand and held it horizontally in front of her chest like a club. Ding! The 2 short knives that were chopping at Lilith fiercely landed on the body of the rifle, causing the sound of metal clashing. It also brought about a large amount of sparks that sputtered out. TCH. Kay made a speechless sound. Ha! On the other hand, Lilith let out an aggressive roar. She didn't care about the rifle that was still blocking Kay's dagger attack. She lifted her slender leg and swung it. Hoo! Turning into an afterimage, her thigh that was like a long whip mixed with the sound of the wind was fiercely swung in Kay's direction. Paw! Lilith's crazily swung thigh collided with Kay's abruptly raised knee. Immediately after, it was as if both sides had collided with a wall. Under the influence of a great force, they involuntarily retreated, creating a distance between them. In that instant, Lilith raised the rifle in her hand and aimed it at Kay's head. The pitch-black muzzle imprinted itself into Kay's eyes. Kay's pupils shrank and he turned his head without hesitation. Bang! In the midst of the muffled gunshot, the bullet formed by mental strength cut through the air, brushed past Kay's cheek, and shot to the rear. Bang bang bang! Without the slightest hesitation, Lilith pulled the trigger of the rifle in her hand one after another. Rubbing against the atmosphere, the sharp sound of the bullets breaking through the air suddenly approached Kay one after another, forcing Kay's figure to retreat somewhat pathetically. From Kay's movements and the fact that he was still able to dodge Lilith's shots despite his sorry state, Kay's combat strength was completely different from the 10 people that were shot down by Noah and Lilith. Noah's feeling was correct. Among these people, Kay was the only one that was truly difficult to deal with. Based on his current combat strength, Kay's combat strength was at least at the level of rank 3, and was even close to rank 4. And in a fight with such an opponent, Lilith seemed to be at ease. How could Noah not be surprised? Chapter 244. After knowing that Lilith had the blaze from the rifle, Noah had already guessed that Lilith's combat power was different from ordinary surpassers. Although surpassers were existences that surpassed humans, there were also high and low degrees of surpassing humans. Otherwise, there would not be the concept of rank. In a situation where one had to be at least grade 3 to be able to more or less see the trajectory of the bullets, one didn't even need to think to know how much of an advantage a person with a blaze would have when other people only had a blaze with a cold weapon. Therefore, Lilith's strength was definitely not simple. According to Noah's knowledge, Lilith was the same as him, rank 2. However, with the help of the blaze from the rifle, even if Lilith was only rank 2, he believed that ordinary rank 3 would not be Lilith's opponent. This was Noah's previous opinion of Lilith. But now, Lilith's performance made Noah realize that his evaluation of her was a lot lower. According to Lilith's current strength, as long as she was not rank 4, in a one-on-one situation, there was basically no one who could pose a threat to her. Noah did not know that in fact, Lilith was the same as him. When she entered the school, she had defeated a rank 3 teacher. In order to test the unique blaze of the rifle, Lilith was also once arranged to fight with a rank 3 teacher when she entered the sister school in the United Kingdom. As a result, Lilith defeated her opponent without any damage. When she was still rank I. Although she could not be compared to the non-human Noah who could defeat a rank 3 teacher with the strength of an ordinary person, Lilith's record was equally astonishing. After all, it was only a difference of one level. The difference between level I and level 2 could be counted in multiples. The difference of 2 levels was to the extent that one could not help but lose the will to fight. Even so, Lilith was still able to defeat a rank 3 with the strength of rank I without any damage. It was obvious that the blaze was not the only special relationship. This point could be seen from Kay, who was forced to retreat by Lilith. He still had a smile on his face, but there was no smile in his eyes. You are indeed worthy of being called a special existence. The information is indeed correct. The daughter of the Bristol family is not easy to deal with. It's a pity that even I can't feel happy after being praised by you. Lilith probably also realized that Kay was not easy to deal with. She raised the rifle and aimed at him, her eyes slightly narrowed. Noah was right. You guys are also existences that surpass humans, right? It is just as you said. Kay smiled in a pretentious manner. Just like how the surpassers rely on the daybreak star pattern to obtain strength that surpasses humans, we, the God Destroyer Squad, rely on the steel armor on our bodies to obtain strength that surpasses humans. God Destroyer Squad. Lilith slightly widened her eyes. Even Noah was startled for a moment, then he laughed. He laughed with disdain as he pointed the revolver in his hand at K. Are you referring to yourself? Noah then pointed the revolver in his hand at K's subordinates who had fallen to the ground. Or are you referring to them? Currently, the steel armor is still an incomplete product that has not been completely adjusted, so it can only display strength of this level. The God Destroyer naturally cannot do that. K still had a refined and courteous appearance, but because it was too artificial, it made people frown. What K said next completely revealed that he was not as courteous as he appeared on the surface. There is no other way. We can only treat the two of you as obstructions and begin the operation with the goal of eliminating the two of you. K, who was dancing the two short knives in his hands like a windmill, finally stopped smiling and looked coldly at Noah. Our target is only Miss Bristol. If you can step down, I would be very grateful. Step down. Noah. Lilith maintained her posture with the gun raised and said these words with incomparable confidence without turning her head. Even if you don't do anything, Noah, I can take care of this guy. Noah immediately glanced at Lilith, who had a confident smile on her face, and then looked at K, who was beginning to emit a murderous aura, and immediately sighed. Although I'd like to just watch from the side, Lilith, this guy isn't the only enemy here. Hearing this, Lilith seemed to have thought of something and looked to the side. There were still 3 of K's subordinates still holding their guns and staring at them with hostility. Obviously, before K's sneak attack began, Lilith's shots at the 3 of them had all missed. 1-on-1 and 1-on-3. Lilith instantly understood Noah's meaning, and a helpless expression appeared in her green eyes. Then, which side do you choose? Of course, the side that is more troublesome and infuriating. Noah's gaze directly landed on K, and a hint of a smile appeared in his dark pupils. After all, you are my important partner, aren't you? Lilith was stunned, and then a big smile appeared on her charming face. That's true. Are the two of you done talking? On the opposite side, K lowered his head and said in a low voice after seeing Noah and Lilith's calm and unruffled performance. Then, I should also eliminate those who are in the way. Perhaps he was impatient with the relaxed atmosphere between Noah and Lilith, but K suddenly clenched his fists and tightly gripped his 2 short knives, and the murderous aura on his body was released bit by bit. Let me see if your strength is as powerful as your mouth, since you can say such big words in front of the daughter of Bristol. Under the influence of the murderous aura that K released without hiding anything, the surrounding temperature seemed to have dropped a little. This made the relaxed expression on Lilith's face disappear first, and it turned into a dignified expression, and even a little ugly. Even if her strength was not bad, Lilith had probably never faced such a dense murderous aura, and it made Lilith's body tense involuntarily. Noah, on the other hand, stared closely at the murderous K, his eyes incomparably calm. How many people have you killed? Who knows? K's smile had already become somewhat cold. You only need to know that you will become the next one. Is that so? Noah faintly smiled, and his pitch-black eyes were also filled with murderous intent. That's good. This way, I don't have to be merciful to you. A chill suddenly surged in K's eyes. The short knives in his hands fiercely shook, and traces of cold light suddenly flashed. Immediately after, K used the short knives in his hands as throwing tools. With a swing of his hands, the 2 short knives turned into 2 cold lights, and with a sound of breaking air, shot explosively towards Noah. Ding! Too lazy to even dodge, Noah directly swung the revolver in his hands, and with a burst of wind, streaked across the air, and collided with the incoming cold lights, knocking the 2 short knives away. And at this time, K's body moved, and 2 short knives appeared in his hands. Like silver snakes, he waved them wildly, and cunningly and ruthlessly stabbed towards the vital points on Noah's body. Chi. Numerous afterimages of the short knives mercilessly stabbed towards Noah's body. The tip of Noah's feet touched the ground, and his body lightly moved, narrowly dodging each and every one of K's swift and fierce stabs. K seemed to be able to see Noah's calm expression while he was dodging. His expression turned serious, and his palm struck the bottom of the short knife in his hand. Shio! The sudden violence caused the short knife to shoot out like a bullet. It was like a poisonous snake that was about to devour a person as it rushed in front of Noah. Shwa! But at this time, a hand suddenly shot out, and grabbed the sharp blade of the short knife. At the same time, the hand actually used force to grip the short knife. Gotcha! The fragile short knife broke into two halves. Chapter 245. Gotcha! Amidst the heart-wrenching cracking sound, the sharp dagger was directly broken into two by Noah's actions. Perhaps K wanted to use a surprise attack to disrupt Noah's battle rhythm, so as to cause effective damage to Noah. But K simply did not know that under the effect of Noah's sensory ability, this kind of unexpected battle method was basically useless. Thus, once the dagger was broken, K's expression suddenly tensed up, and his body instantly retreated. While K was retreating, K's hand reached for his waist and pulled out a weapon at lightning speed. Surprisingly, it was the submachine gun that K's subordinates were also using. However, just as K was about to pull the trigger of the submachine gun in his hand, in front of him, Noah's feet turned, and a beautiful flash of light appeared under his feet. Pang! At that moment, the ground under Noah's feet was directly crushed by the shockwave from Noah's feet, and Noah himself was pushed by the shockwave, his body like a ray of light, directly shooting out. K only felt a blur in front of him, and then, a pair of cold, pitch-black eyes followed by a figure appeared in front of him. Noah's speed made K's heart tremble. At this moment, Noah suddenly swung out a solid punch without any fancy moves, and fiercely slammed it into the submachine gun in K's hand. The vigorous force was like water flowing out of a dam, crazily venting out. Pang! After the sound of an explosion, K's wrist went numb, and the submachine gun in his hand actually made a slight gotcha sound from Noah's punch. That was the sound of the body of the submachine gun cracking. K's heart trembled again, and before he could react, a mocking voice rang out. This is the so-called God Destroyer team. You want to destroy a god with this level of strength? K's face turned black and white under Noah's mocking evaluation, and even his eyes turned slightly red. The murderous aura on his body surged like a violent storm. You're just a student who hides in a completely useless school playing a game of becoming stronger. What right do you have to evaluate me? K removed his pretense of politeness and stared fixedly at Noah. You don't even know if you've seen blood before, I'll let you experience true cruelty. After he finished speaking, K's feet stomped, and his body lowered, his speed suddenly increased by several levels, and he charged straight in Noah's direction. Swish! A short knife cut through the air like lightning, and under K's brandishing it made a sharp sound, fiercely piercing towards Noah. Dah! Noah immediately once again tiptoed, and his body lightly moved to the side. Chee! The sharp short knife brushed past Noah's shoulder and flew past. However, the short knife that missed suddenly trembled, and strangely curved into an arc, flicking towards Noah's head. Noah's expression didn't change, and he tilted his head back. This time, the short knife brushed past Noah's face and flew past. At this moment, Noah stomped his feet on the ground, and his body spun at high speed like a top. He threw out a kick, and a kick that contained a powerful force immediately and fiercely whipped towards K's direction. Pang! K, who had hurriedly raised his dagger to block the kick, was forced back a few steps by the force of the kick that landed on his dagger. Without any hesitation, K used the force of the shockwave to retreat. With a flip of his hand, he pulled out another dagger. Seeing this, Noah's eyes slightly narrowed. His body moved, and he turned into a blurry black shadow, and violently rushed out. After suffering once, Kay also understood how proficient Noah's fighting ability was. He didn't dare to let Noah get close to him again. He let go of the short knife in his hand, and with a half-turn of his body, he ferociously kicked the short knife's handle. The short knife was like a ray of silver light, and with the ferocious force of Kay's kick, it viciously shot towards Noah's eyes. Noah's body paused, and then he suddenly jumped, and the tip of his foot accurately tapped on the short knife's handle. And the next moment, the foot that Noah tapped on the short knife's handle flashed with a brilliant light, and the surrounding space suddenly appeared with bursts of light, converging under Noah's feet. Seeing this scene that had happened once before, Kay's pupils shrunk to the size of a needle. Pang! At the same time, the light that had converged under Noah's feet exploded, shattering the short knife under his feet. His body once again turned into a flash of light, and like a ghost, he appeared in front of Kay. This time, Noah didn't give Kay the chance to react. His eyes trembled, and he extended his hand. Noah's elbow was like a thick stick, and it ruthlessly smashed down on Kay's hand that was previously holding the short knife that was shot towards his eyes. Caw! The elbow that landed on Kay's wrist exploded with a powerful force, and it directly caused Kay's wrist to emit a crisp sound of breaking bones. If this attack had landed directly on Kay's hand, then Kay's hand might have been crippled. However, because the armor-like, armored steel also covered Kay's hand, the cracking sound caused by Noah's elbow smashing into Kay's hand wasn't the sound of bones breaking, but the sound of the armored steel armor on Kay's hand shattering. Even so, Noah's attack only gave Kay enough time to change his expression. Immediately after, Noah's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. He raised his fist that was wrapped in a strong wind, and heavily smashed it towards Kay's head, the only part that wasn't protected by the armored steel armor. The incoming strong wind caused Kay's face to break out in a cold sweat with a schwa sound. Looking at the fist that was rapidly enlarging in his eyes, Kay hurriedly raised his hand to protect his face. Pang! Noah's fist, which was enveloped by a strong gust of wind, struck Kay's hand that was protecting his face. It also landed on the armored steel armor on Kay's arm. With a low sound, it blocked Noah's fist. However, Kay didn't have enough time to relax. In front of him, shadows of fists suddenly flashed. Each shadow of fists contained strength that was definitely not weaker than the previous one. Along with the air currents, they enveloped Kay in a series of sonic booms. Pang pang pang. The shadows of fists were like raindrops pouring down on Kay's arm. Kacha kacha. The armored steel armor on Kay's arm continuously emitted cracking sounds. Pang. At a certain moment, with a muffled sound, the armored steel armor on Kay's arm exploded. Pang. Noah's eyes turned cold. He clenched his fist and mercilessly punched Kay's arm, which was only left with the strength of a mortal. Kacha! This time, the cracking sounds really did resonate from the bones in Kay's arm. Goo woo! Kay, whose arm was broken, finally squeezed out a painful groan from his throat. At this moment, Noah didn't have the slightest bit of hesitation. He swung his fist, and under Kay's horrified gaze, his fist went through the air and wind, heading straight for Kay's face. Pang! In the end, his hard fist still made contact with Kay's face. Poochie! This solid punch directly caused Kay to violently spit out a mouthful of blood. His body was like a bird with broken wings as he flew backwards, heavily crashing into a tombstone not far away. Dong! The terrifying force caused the tombstone behind Kay to collapse. The fragments of the tombstone also turned into a pile of rubble, burying Kay's figure within. The battle ended abruptly and quickly. Cough cough cough. Kay, who was buried within the rubble, coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. Then, a black shadow slowly covered Kay's field of vision. How does it feel to lose to a student like me, who hides in a completely useless school and plays a game of becoming stronger? Noah looked down at Kay from above. Mr. Who understands true cruelty. Chapter 246. The intense pain on his face made Kay's consciousness a little fuzzy. But even so, Kay still stared at Noah, who was looking down at him from above. After a while, he spat out a few words. Unlike the students who were leisurely training in Haolang Academy, the soldiers of the God Destroyer troop, led by Kay, were trained in an environment where they could die at any time. Thus, disregarding the physical condition and other external conditions, just in terms of combat experience and techniques, Kay, who was trained in an environment where he could die at any time, could not possibly lose to a group of students who were leisurely training in the academy. Even in terms of external conditions, even if Kay's installation steel was an incomplete product that had not been completely adjusted, it would not be a problem for him to match the physical condition of a surpasser, who had been strengthened by the Daybreak Star pattern of level 2. In a situation where he did not lose to his opponent in terms of combat experience, techniques, and other internal conditions, as well as physical, mental, and other external conditions, why would he be defeated without being able to retaliate, and lose so miserably? Kay did not understand. No matter how he thought about it, he could not understand. But if he simply thought about it, wouldn't the answer be obvious very quickly? The installation steel on his body was probably able to match the physical condition of a level 2 surpasser. And the level of the opponent in front of him should be level 2, based on the information he had. Then, in a situation where his physical condition was the same, yet he still lost to his opponent, wasn't the answer obvious? His opponent's combat experience and techniques were above his own. This was the reason. But Kay could not accept this reason at all. Of course, there was no way that Kay would know that in order to defeat him, Noah had even used his newly learned Great Leap. That technique that had shocked even the level V Moonlit Glass Rabbit when it was level 1, when used with the level 2 physical strength, how much would Noah's speed increase? This was the real reason why Kay, whose overall strength had reached rank 3 and was close to rank 4, was defeated so quickly. Although Kay didn't know about the Great Leap Forward, he knew that he had lost so quickly because of Noah's terrifying speed. His body immediately trembled, and his bloodshot eyes were fixed on Noah, filled with hatred. If it wasn't for the fact that the adjustment of the steel installation hadn't been completed. Is this what someone who understands true cruelty would say? Noah sneered. The guy who understands true cruelty, is actually someone who doesn't even understand that the outcome of a fight represents everything? After saying that, Noah revealed a look of pity. What's the difference between this kind of daydreaming and the students you despise? Kay's blood-stained face contorted. He didn't say anything, but the hatred in his eyes as he looked at Noah grew stronger and stronger. However, for Noah, this wasn't the first time he had to endure this kind of gaze. Didn't you just say that I don't even know if I've seen blood before? Lowering his eyes, Noah looked at Kay, who was lying in front of him, and sneered. He raised the revolver in his hand, which he hadn't used even once in his fight with Kay, and aimed it at Kay's head. Then let me tell you the answer. After saying that, Noah's body began to emit a strange feeling, causing Kay, who was lying on the ground, to have a drastic change in expression. This strange feeling, for Kay, was already as familiar as eating a meal. Killing intent. True killing intent. The student in front of him, whom he disdained, actually had this kind of true killing intent. If it was killing intent, Kay wouldn't be surprised at all. After all, as long as one was a human, it was possible to have evil intentions towards others, and develop killing intent. But if it was killing intent, it was a type of temperament that only those who had killed before would have. In other words, the student in front of him had killed before. Furthermore, with this kind of true killing intent, how could the blaze not turn into a deadly weapon when used with hostility, malice, and killing intent? As long as Noah pulled the trigger in this state, then Kay's life would end there. However, in this situation where his heart was filled with the threat of death, Kay didn't feel any fear. Instead, he laughed, and the more he laughed, the louder and crazier he laughed. So that's how it is. So that's how it is. No wonder you could defeat me. Kay, who was lying on the ground, laughed joyfully while looking at Noah mockingly. So, you are also a demon who can use the weapon in your hand to take other people's lives. You are one of my own kind. Noah suddenly raised his eyes, and the finger that was on the trigger pulled without hesitation. Pang! The muffled sound of a gunshot rang out. Shio! The pitch-black bullet pierced through the air and flew upwards, shooting into the ceiling of the haunted house. Noah stared blankly at the revolver that he didn't know when it had been placed on his hand. He raised the revolver that he had aimed at Kay, and the white slender hand that moved his hand so that the muzzle of the revolver was facing the sky. He turned his head and looked to his side. A pair of jade eyes appeared in Noah's eyes. Not far away, the three people who should have been fighting with the owner of this pair of beautiful eyes had all fallen to the ground. It's fine if you stop here. The hand that was tightly holding Noah's gun raised the muzzle of the revolver to the sky. The culprit who had saved the lives of her enemies was still holding the rifle in one hand, and her gem-like eyes met Noah's gaze. Don't continue. Noah didn't avoid the pair of jade eyes that were less than 10 centimeters away from him. He looked directly at Lilith. He wanted to kill me, and even kidnapped you. Who knows how many people he has killed? Noah's implication was that such a person deserved to die. I understand. Lilith's eyes fluctuated with a strange expression. It was a feeling called heartache. I never say what I have said once, but this time, I want to tell you once again that we are the same kind. Lilith said word by word. So, I will never admit that you are the same kind as this guy. Noah's eyes also flickered, but he still didn't move his gaze away. It was as if he avoided Lilith's gaze, he would lose. Is it because of this reason that you stopped me? If Lilith stopped him because of this reason, then Noah didn't mind telling Lilith the truth. However, in the next moment, Lilith's face that was always full of confidence showed a sad smile for the first time, and she said such a sentence. I just don't want your soul to be stained with the color of blood again because of this guy. This sentence deeply touched Noah's heart. The scene fell into a stifling silence. After a long time, Noah lowered the hand that was holding the gun, and the revolver turned into a flame and disappeared. This made Lilith reveal an extremely beautiful smile, and at the same time, it also made Kay roar in excitement. Kill me. Why didn't you kill me? Whether I kill you or not, it's not up to you, but up to me. You should be glad that you were lucky enough to escape. Noah glanced at Kay, whose face was twisted in excitement. Let me tell you, I'm not the same kind as you. At least, the guys that died in my hands deserve to die, and some of the people that died in your hands must be innocent. After leaving this sentence, Noah no longer paid attention to Kay, and walked past the attackers on the ground, toward the exit. Behind him, Lilith was also following beside Noah. Her footsteps were as heroic as usual, carrying with them an unusual charm. Her charming face that used to carry a confident smile was now wearing a satisfied smile. Immediately after, Lilith hugged Noah's arm and buried her happy face into Noah's shoulder. Sure enough, it's great to have Noah become my tripping blade. Noah smiled bitterly. Chapter 247. The day after defeating the 10-man team of K and the God Destroyer squad, Noah and Lilith were called to the chairman's office. After defeating K and the God Destroyer squad yesterday, Noah didn't pay attention to those people anymore. However, Lilith immediately notified the school and had the Tomb Protectors stationed in the school move out to arrest all the members of the God Destroyer squad, including K. The so-called Tomb Protectors here referred to the Surpassers who graduated from Holang Academy and joined the Dawn organization's way-in army to work. Since these Tomb Protectors belonged to the Dawn organization, then naturally a portion of them would be transferred to Holang Academy to protect the birthplace of the Surpassers. If one wanted to graduate from Holang Academy, they had to at least reach level 3. Therefore, even the weakest of the Tomb Protectors had the combat strength of level 3, and a portion of them were even level 4, which couldn't be compared to level 3. The difference between level 3 and level 4 was extremely frightening. It was even more frightening than the difference between level 4 and level V. After all, once a Surpasser advanced to level 4, not only would their body and mind receive the most basic level of strengthening, they would also be able to release the true power of Blaze. With the ability to release the true power of Blaze, it was easy to imagine how much stronger level 4 would be compared to level 3. With the existence of such a group of guards, the members of the God Destroyer team, led by K, were easily defeated. Even if they weren't defeated, other than K, the rest of them wouldn't have the slightest ability to resist. Naturally, all of them were successfully captured. This had only happened yesterday. And only after such a thing had happened yesterday did the chairman ask the person involved to come to the office today. Moreover, he didn't listen to what had happened and directly threw out a piece of news that made Noah raise his eyebrows. You released all of those people? Yes. 99 Lunar Knights released all of K and the God Destroyer squad. That's right. 99 Lunar Knights sat behind a luxurious desk as deep as the night. Her doll-like delicate face was full of smiles. Is there a problem? What's the problem? This didn't need to be a discerning person. As long as one had some common sense, they wouldn't be able to accept it, right? That was a direct attack on the students of the academy, and the target of the attack was one of the investors of the Dawn organization, the eldest daughter of the Bristol family, a criminal member with the title of Special Lilith. In addition, the other party's purpose of kidnapping Lilith was to threaten the Dawn organization. As the leader of the Dawn organization, how could 99 Lunar Knights let her go just like that? No matter how he thought about it, it didn't make sense, right? However, Noah just raised his eyebrows and turned his head away without asking anything. This made 99th Lunar Knight curious. Don't you want to say something? What do you want me to say? Don't tell me you want me to blame this kind of illogical thing that happens all the time in this academy. Noah glanced at 99th Lunar Knight and said this with a smile that wasn't a smile. Haven't you done this kind of thing before? Your Excellency, Blaze Diabolica. 99th Lunar Knight's expression changed. Noah. Lilith, who was originally leisurely playing with her hair on the side, also turned her head in surprise. However, before she could do anything, Noah raised his hand in front of her and stopped her from speaking. Blaze Diabolica, Equipment Smith, these two taboo names were heard from those guys who only knew how to do sneaky things yesterday. Noah said with an indifferent face. According to the other party, Surpasser was created by Blaze Diabolica, and God Destroyer seemed to be created by Equipment Smith. I don't have much interest in the latter, but as for the former, the so-called Surpasser, the person who created the Surpasser, thinking about it, is obviously the highest person in charge of the Dawn organization, Mr. Chairman, right? The surrounding atmosphere gradually became heavy with Noah's indifferent words. As a student, it's better if you don't casually mention this taboo name, and it's best if you don't get involved. 99th Lunar Night stared at Noah with an expressionless face. After a while, she said softly, "Just like how we never asked about your origin." Hearing these words, Noah suddenly narrowed his eyes, and secretly sighed in his heart. In the end, the tampering with his household register and identity was still exposed. However, that wasn't strange. Even if Noah could rely on his hacking ability to leave his information in the country's database, and hack into a household register and identity, at most it would only be able to deceive ordinary people. If he wanted to deceive a country's underground organization like the Dawn Organization, that was absolutely impossible. Only, Noah didn't think that in a situation where his identity was unknown, and the fact that his tampering was exposed, 99th Lunar Night actually didn't expose him. Could it be that even if an unidentified person stayed in the school, it didn't matter? Could it be that 99th Lunar Night wasn't afraid that Noah had the intention to harm the Dawn Organization and infiltrated the school? It doesn't matter. As if she could see through Noah's thoughts, 99th Lunar Night said with an unprecedentedly firm tone. As long as you can achieve absolute duo, in the end, it doesn't matter no matter what. Absolute duo. Noah stared blankly. What is absolute duo? What does it have to do with tripping duo? The various doubts in his heart made Noah realize that the world wasn't as simple as it seemed, and this made Noah fall into silence. Even if he directly asked the question, 99th Lunar Night shouldn't answer him, right? Then, rather than asking for a rebuff, it was better to not ask anything. Seeing Noah choose to remain silent, 99th Lunar Night looked deeply at Noah, and her heart once again exclaimed in admiration for the other party. Incomparably powerful battle skills and battle experience. As special, Blaze belonged to the category of exception. In addition to his astonishing insight, his ability to act, and his state of mind that could easily handle any situation, this student of unknown origin in front of her always made 99th Lunar Night feel unusually surprised. Of course, for 99th Lunar Night, she was only interested in Noah's blaze, which was also soul. Only this could be directly related to 99th Lunar Night's sorrowful wish. I hope that the rest of your life can be the same as before. While all kinds of thoughts flashed through her mind, 99th Lunar Night also looked straight at Noah. Whether it's from here or from other places that have nothing to do with your current life, I hope that you will be able to forget it in the future. Hearing 99th Lunar Night's words, Noah laughed self-deprecatingly. In other words, you hope that I can keep my mouth shut. I just don't want any strange disturbances to happen in this school. 99th Lunar Night shook her head, and then took out something from the drawer. It was a rod-shaped object with a lid-like device connected to the front and back, and a test tube filled with liquid was sandwiched in the middle. This is... On the side, Lilith let out a surprised voice. Even Noah was a little surprised. This is the syringe for the new, daybreak star pattern. 99th Lunar Night put the rod-shaped object on the desk in front of her, raised her eyes, and looked at Noah. Noah Doria, I will give you the right to perform the sublimation ritual and obtain the special opportunity to sublimate. Following such a sentence, Noah and Lilith's gaze were cast at the syringe on the desk at the same time. They did not speak, and the scene fell into silence. Chapter 248. As soon as they walked out of the chairman's office, Noah and Lilith heard a sound behind them, closing the door of the chairman's office. Standing in front of the door of the office, Noah and Lilith did not look at each other. They just stood there quietly and did not speak for a long time. Noah raised his hand and looked at the internal test tube filled with the daybreak star pattern rod without a needle. In his heart, he did not understand what kind of trick 99 Lunar Nights was playing. Logically speaking, the sublimation ritual was an opportunity that would only be given at the end of the semester. In this country, a grade was generally 3 semesters. That is to say, in a year, the school would only give students 3 opportunities to undergo the sublimation ritual. In this way, in 3 years, a student could generally undergo the sublimation ritual at least 9 times. But don't think that this number was a lot. After all, even if one could get the opportunity to undergo the sublimation ritual, if the physical and mental training was not enough, then it would be impossible to achieve sublimation. Not to mention that if one was unable to successfully sublimate, not only would they have a high fever for several days, but their whole body would also be attacked by severe muscle pain. Even if there were 3 opportunities in a year and there was no way to sublimate, they would not be able to advance to the next grade and would suffer the fate of dropping out. In this way, the opportunity to undergo the sublimation ritual was very precious. Because of the good results in the new blade battle, Noah had already received an additional opportunity to undergo the sublimation ritual. Now, after knowing that Noah's identity was fake and his origin was very suspicious, 99 lunar nights not only did not do anything to Noah, but also inexplicably gave Noah an opportunity to undergo the sublimation ritual. What was the purpose of this? Not knowing if she saw through Noah's thoughts, Lilith, who was standing beside Noah, suddenly spoke. "Don't think too much." Noah was startled. "Aren't you thinking about why 99 lunar nights did not kick you out of the school after learning about your origin and fake identity, but also gave you the sublimation ritual? Lilith's green eyes looked forward and said without turning her head. "That's why I told you not to think about it too much. That child has already told you her purpose." Lilith turned her head and met Noah's gaze. "Everything is for the sake of achieving absolute duo." Absolute duo. Absolute duo again. Noah finally couldn't help but ask. "What exactly is this absolute duo?" Lilith closed her eyes, but her voice echoed clearly, "That is the ultimate realm that transcends human beings can reach. When the power of the soul is raised to the limit, the domain that can be reached is called absolute duo." Raise the power of the soul to the limit. Noah couldn't help but tighten his grip on the syringe in his hand as he frowned. In other words, raise the power of a blaze to the limit. Lilith couldn't deny it and smiled. She reached out her hand and grabbed one of Noah's hands. Then, under Noah's stunned gaze, she pressed Noah's hand in front of her body and pressed it on her full breasts. That familiar yet strange touch passed through Noah's hand and into his nerves. Noah's mind turned blank. "Why do you think I am special? Why are you an exception? Why is 9-layer penetration an ability? Isn't that because our soul is abnormal?" But not only did Lilith not care, she even raised her beautiful eyes and stared closely at Noah. For that child, the only thing that is valuable is our soul. And it is because our soul is different and unique that I have so many privileges. That is why you are treated as an exception and allowed to stay in this school. Saying this, Lilith seemed to want to press Noah's hand into her soul and feel it. She kept making Noah's hand sink into her full breasts. In order to make the power of the soul to the limit, in order to achieve absolute duo, that child can do anything. This is why there are so many ridiculous things happening in this school. During the qualification ceremony of the entrance ceremony, the new students had to duel with the person closest to them. During the tripping duo arrangement, they didn't care about secular etiquette and let Noah, Ivan, and Julie live in the same dorm. During the new blade battle, they arranged for Yu Jianli Rabbit to attack the students. After Yu Jianli Rabbit attacked the students, they even openly let Yu Jianli Rabbit become the teacher of the first grade students again. And, after Noah's fake identity was exposed, they still allowed Noah to stay in the school. Things that were extremely ridiculous to other people not only happened frequently in this school, but also mixed into the lives of the students as if it was a matter of course. This was all because the school's chairman was such a person. In order to achieve absolute duo, she could ignore everything else and only wanted to achieve results and goals. Recalling 99 lunar nights' determination when she mentioned absolute duo, all the doubts in Noah's heart disappeared in an instant. Since she is a witch, it is not strange that she has a curse. In the end, Noah squeezed out this sentence out of sympathy. Even if it's a curse called absolute duo. Lilith was silent. Pawpaw. At this moment, the sound of something falling to the ground was heard. Noah and Lilith both turned their heads reflexively and looked at the source of the sound. Then, both of them saw it. They saw Ivan, Julie, Tachibana, and Ya. The four girls stood not far away. Under their feet, a few cans of drinks rolled on the ground, but it didn't attract the attention of the four girls. This was because all four girls had their eyes wide open and were staring at the same spot. They stared at Noah's hand that was pressed on Lilith's full chest under Lilith's lead. The surrounding air froze at an extremely fast speed. Noah and Lilith followed everyone's gaze and also looked at Noah's hand and Lilith's chest. Looking at Noah's hand that was deeply immersed in Lilith's plump breasts, the two of them showed different reactions. Lilith didn't seem to understand what she had done until now. She looked shocked. Noah's mouth twitched, and his face stiffened. He looked back in the direction of Ivan, Julie, Tachibana, and Ya, and then the corner of his mouth twitched. "Sorry to disturb you." Ivanly laughed, but there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. He turned around and left in a huff. "No, no, 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 shameless." Tachibana's pretty face instantly turned red. She screamed and fled in a sorry state. "Yes, yes, 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 sorry." Ya's face was also flushed red. She hurriedly bowed and staggered away. Julie lowered her head and covered the expression on her face under her silver bangs. After a while, she reached out a hand and pressed it on her chest. Blazing fong. The gorgeous flames turned into a pair of blades and fell into Julie's hands. The next moment, Julie didn't even give Noah and Lilith a chance to react. She raised her gloomy face, crouched, and rushed in the direction of Noah and Lilith. At night, when Lilith fell asleep due to exhaustion from Julie's torment, Noah stood at the window and raised his hand under the bright moonlight. In Noah's hand, the syringe filled with Daybreak Star rune was firmly held in his hand. Without the slightest hesitation, Noah raised the syringe in his hand and pierced it into his neck with all his might. With a soft sound, the liquid representing Daybreak Star rune slowly disappeared in the syringe and entered Noah's body. Chapter 249. The next day, after class, the girls who were familiar with Noah gathered around Noah. Especially Ivanly, who was sitting in front of Noah. He seemed to have forgotten the matter of him storming out in anger in front of Noah yesterday. He moved his face closer to Noah and said with great surprise, "You've really risen to level 3. Julie, whose face was still emotionless, making it hard to tell if yesterday's venting had any effect on her anger, and Tachibana and Ya, who were somewhat evasive because of yesterday's matter, all converged their gazes on Noah. Not to mention Ivanly, Julie, Tachibana and Ya, even the rest of the students cast their gazes on Noah's direction. Their eyes were filled with envy and amazement. Did he really rise to level 3? How long has it been since he left school? Undoubtedly, there are still many of us who are only at level 1. In the class just now, Yu Jinli, who was acting cute as usual, made a high-profile announcement as soon as class started. She announced that Noah had successfully risen to level 3. According to Yu Jinli, not long ago, Noah had pulled out an outlaw who had infiltrated the school and received high praise from the chairman. Therefore, the chairman specially gave Noah a chance to use the Ascension instrument. Under this half-truth announcement, the news that Noah had successfully risen to level 3 was immediately known to the whole class, which led to such a situation. However, it was no wonder that everyone was so surprised. After all, in the school, every year students must successfully obtain an Ascension instrument within a year to be promoted to the next year. Otherwise, they would be expelled. And Noah, who had successfully risen to level 3, was equivalent to obtaining the qualifications to be promoted to the third year of the school. As long as he honestly studied in the school, he would be able to smoothly welcome graduation after 3 years and enter the Dawn organization to work. How could the students not be surprised and envious? It should be noted that other than Evanli, Julie, Tachibana, Yujue Totaru, and Yuta Totaru, and a few other students who obtained good results in the new blade battle and were promoted to level 2, the rest of the students were still level 1. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for Noah, who was not only the strongest among the first years, but also the one with the highest rank, not to attract the attention of everyone. Facing the gazes of Ivan, Julie, Tachibana, and all his classmates, Noah sighed inwardly. Noah had indeed successfully leveled up to grade 3. But in fact, Noah was not only not happy, but also a little disappointed. This was because Noah discovered that the strengthening effect of the Daybreak Star rune, this time was much weaker than the previous 2 times. The Daybreak Star pattern could strengthen a person's body and spirit, allowing them to obtain extraordinary power and become an existence that surpassed humans. It was a pity that Noah was already an existence that surpassed humans, and even surpassed them by a large margin. Although the Daybreak Star rune was a magical thing that strengthened the human body in a multiplicative manner, Noah had already discovered that there was a limit to the strengthening of the Daybreak Star rune. From the point of view of Noah, who had released all of his power, the strengthening of the Daybreak Star rune on his body was minimal, which was enough to prove that there was a limit to the strengthening of the Daybreak Star rune. Fortunately, even if the strengthening of the body was minimal, the Daybreak Star rune could still strengthen the person's spirit, specialize the person's soul, and allow the person to obtain a weapon called the Blaze. It could also indirectly increase Noah's magical power, giving Noah a lot of benefits. But now, not only did the Daybreak Star rune strengthen Noah's body, even the strengthening of his spirit seemed to have finally reached its peak. Compared to the previous 2 times, the extent of the increase was extremely limited. The evidence was that Noah clearly felt it after successfully leveling up to grade 3. This time, his magical power was not able to increase by much. In other words, the strengthening brought by the Daybreak Star rune on Noah's body, spirit, magic, and other aspects had all become negligible. Only the blaze was still strengthened, and its hardness, toughness, and other aspects had all been greatly improved. It was believed that after 1 or 2 more times of strengthening, the effect of the Daybreak Star rune would be the same as the protozoan virus, and would no longer have any effect on Noah. Aware of this, how could Noah not be disappointed? Noah could only release some of his limited power, and after he obtained the strength of grade 3, he let go of the Daybreak Star rune's expectations of strengthening his body, spirit, and magical power. Of course, although Noah let go of the Daybreak Star rune's expectations of strengthening, he was still looking forward to the next upgrade. Even if the Daybreak Star rune's strengthening had gradually begun to have no effect on Noah, after leveling up to grade 4, it was not only the strengthening power, but also another kind of power that Noah was looking forward to would be obtained by Noah in the next grade. Blaze was the true power of Blazing Fang. Thinking of this, the disappointment in Noah's heart disappeared by a lot. Even if I leveled up to grade 3, there is nothing to be happy about. Immediately, Noah said to the crowd that had gathered around. Did you guys hear what Teacher Tsukujiri said just now? Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, and Ya suddenly looked at each other. After a while, Ya weakly raised her hand. Is it about leveling up to grade 4? Leveling up to grade 4 could release the true power hidden in Blaze. This matter, Tsukujiri Bunny had just announced in front of the class. This caused the students in the class to look forward to the true power hidden in their blaze, but at the same time, it also caused many students to feel vexed. This was because Tsukujiri Bunny had also said another piece of news. If you want to level up to grade 4, not only do you need to have more stringent physical conditions, the mental requirements will also greatly increase. Is it referring to this matter? Tachibana also frowned in vexation. I didn't think that leveling up to grade 4 would be so difficult. Ivanli, Julie, and Ya all nodded. Even Noah lowered his head and muttered to himself. According to what Tsukujiri Bunny had said, although the conditions for reaching each grade were the same, which was to obtain sufficient physical and mental training, the 3 grades of Grade I, Grade 2, and Grade 3 had higher physical requirements, but the mental requirements were not as high. However, if you want to level up to Grade 4, the conditions were completely opposite. Let's use an analogy. If the required physical and mental values to level up to Grade 2 and Grade 3 were 10, then the physical value would be 9, and the mental value would only be 1. However, at Grade 4, the 2 values were reversed. Only when the mental value reached 9, and the physical value reached 1, could one successfully level up. It was said that this was because at Grade 4, one needed to greatly strengthen their mental strength in order to draw out more of their soul's power, and to stimulate the true power hidden in blaze. This was why leveling up to Grade 4 had such harsh mental requirements. And this was what everyone was vexed about. The physical aspect could still be purposefully improved through daily training. But how could one improve their mental strength? Train their willpower. What kind of training would be the most effective? Or were there other methods? These, no one knew. It was because of this reason that Tsukujiri Bunny used a happy and cruel tone to tell everyone a piece of news. In this school, there were at most 3 or 4 people who could level up to Grade 4 every year. True power. Ivanli couldn't help but put his hand on his chest. What kind of power does my blaze have? Julie, Tachibana, and Ya all fell into a reverie. Even Noah couldn't help but look forward to it. What kind of power does my blaze have? It really makes people look forward to it. Chapter 250. In a burst of softness that made people reluctant to leave, Noah woke up from his sleep, and his confused head began to wake up. As soon as he woke up, the softness that still surrounded Noah when he fell asleep and made Noah feel as if he had entered a very comfortable place touched every nerve in Noah in a clearer way. Noah, who was really familiar with this soft touch, could only open his eyes and look at the ceiling. After a long time, he smiled bitterly. Noah! Noah! 2 dreamlike murmurs echoed softly from Noah's left and right sides, and the soft feeling became clearer. Even if he didn't confirm it with his own eyes, Noah could guess what had happened. It must be that Julie and Lilith habitually hugged each other, sandwiching Noah tightly in the middle. In fact, this was indeed the case. As usual, today's Julie and Lilith were still naked, but their bodies were covered with a thin sheet. Their delicate bodies under the sheet were desperately sticking to Noah's body, as if they were using Noah as a pillow, entangling him like an octopus. Noah, who was sandwiched between Julie and Lilith, could only bear the smooth skin from Julie and the plump touch from Lilith. There was only a bitter smile on his face again and again. If it was before, Noah would inevitably be shaken. However, the same thing would shake if it happened once or twice, and it would shake if it happened a dozen or 20 times. But if it happened nearly 100 times, would it still shake? At least, Noah was completely numb. It has to be said that habit is really a very scary thing. Undoubtedly, there were 2 extremely beautiful foreign girls sleeping with him almost every day, and they were sleeping with him naked every day. As a healthy man, Noah not only survived, but he was no longer shaken by the same wonderful encounter. Isn't this scary? The most frightening thing was not Noah's habits, but the habits of Julie, Lilith, and even Ivan. After a few months of interaction, he didn't know if Julie and Lilith had completely trusted Noah. Now, they basically didn't guard against Noah. They could calmly take off their clothes in front of Noah at any time. Ever since she started to resist Lilith and was unwilling to give Noah's right to sleep with Lilith, Julie would come to this room almost every night after taking a shower, refusing to leave no matter what. Gradually, even Ivan, who shared a room with Julie, got used to it. In the beginning, he would sulk when Julie and Lilith fought to sleep with Noah every night, but now, all he did was sigh and get along with Noah as usual. According to Ivan himself, since there hadn't been any strange rumors in the past few months, it proved that Noah's character was still trustworthy. At the very least, he wouldn't do anything strange to the opposite sex who shared the same bed. Therefore, Ivan was relieved. Evgenia didn't blush because of such things. She just smiled shyly when she knew that Noah, Julie, and Lilith were sleeping together. Only Orange Bar seemed to be unable to get used to it in his entire life. Every time he encountered something that had to do with relationships between men and women, he would either overreact or curse Noah as shameless, with a flushed face before running away. It was under such circumstances that Noah lived in the school for a few months. And today, it was finally the end of the semester. Thinking of this, Noah took a deep breath, and the depression in his heart dissipated a lot. With some expectations, he began to wake up the two charming girls. Good morning. Good morning. Voices saying good morning to each other constantly sounded from the surroundings. In the first-year classroom, a group of students was laughing and talking. And if one observed carefully, they would find that compared to a few months ago, the current first-year students had changed a lot. The original feeling of immaturity was gone, replaced by an aura that had begun to settle down. After a few months of intensive training and combat training, the group of students had already undergone obvious changes compared to when they first entered the school. They couldn't be said to be strong, but at least they had the feeling of being a combat personnel, just like how a recruit became a veteran, ready to be sent to the battlefield at any time. Of course, it was just a little. After all, even though the first-year students often had all kinds of comparisons and duels, they hadn't experienced a real life and death battle. They could only be considered to have left the beginner stage, but they were still rookies. However, that didn't affect the progress of the first-year students. The day has finally come. I've been waiting for a long time. We can finally level up. We must succeed. Yeah. Amidst the laughter and chatter, the students were all making similar statements. The reason was very simple. Because today, at the end of the first semester, the first-year students would also usher in their first ascension ritual. Not to mention that if they succeeded, they would be able to jump to level 2, and their strength would increase greatly. Just the fact that there were several level 2 classmates around them, and even level 3 existences, already made these level 1 students, who were only level 1, look forward to the ascension ritual. And the few level 2 students were also looking forward to today's ascension ritual. As long as they passed today's ascension ritual and rose to level 3, they would be able to sit back and relax until the third year, and finally welcome graduation, without having to worry about being expelled. Regarding this, the most timid Yo was extremely nervous. Relax, yeah. Orange Bar patted Ya's slender back. Your efforts during this period will definitely not be in vain, trust me. Little Bar. Yo looked at Orange Bar with gratitude and worry in her eyes. But can I really do it? Ma, yeah, don't worry. Ivan hugged Ya's soft body and giggled. Don't forget, you are now publicly recognized as the second person in terms of physical strength in the first year. In the past few months, you relied on the breathing technique to run almost every day to hone her physical strength. This not only made Ya's control of the breathing technique more and more skillful, but it also allowed Ya's physical strength to be fully improved in the past few months of training. Now, in terms of physical strength, Ya was already the second person in the entire first year, and even the second year. As for the first place, it was naturally the developer of the breathing technique. Noah. Julie turned her head and looked at Noah with her deep red eyes. Aren't you worried? Noah, who had been pestered by the bored Lilith, spread out his hands. If I get it, it's my fortune, if I don't, it's my fate. Julie nodded in confusion, clearly not understanding Noah's meaning. On the other hand, Lilith looked straight at Noah, a smile slowly appearing on her delicate face as if she could see through Noah's heart. That's what you say, but you're still looking forward to it, right? Noah smiled and did not deny it. He was indeed looking forward to it. He was looking forward to what kind of power his blaze could display after reaching level 4. If the sublimation fails, then I will have a high fever for a few days and won't be able to get out of bed for a while. Noah looked around at the girls around him. So, our goal is to successfully sublimate. Of course. Lilith was the first to speak confidently. If it wasn't for the successful sublimation, I wouldn't have waited until now. As a special, Lilith must have a lot of methods to obtain the daybreak star pattern needed to perform the sublimation ritual. But even so, Lilith did not rashly perform the sublimation, because if she couldn't sublimate, she would have to lie in bed for a few days in vain. So, even someone as confident as Lilith would not rashly perform the sublimation ritual. I hope you can be a little more nervous, Orange Bar said to Lilith. Lilith has no sense of nervousness. Yes, 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 Lilith replied casually, making Orange Bar angry and helpless. After a few months, Lilith finally got along well with everyone under Noah's influence. She no longer missed work for no reason and hid in her room to sleep in or drink black tea. And the one who had the best relationship with Lilith was actually the serious Orange Bar, which was really unexpected. Chapter 251. Everyone. Hurry up and line up. Otherwise, it'll be troublesome if you miss this rare opportunity to sublimate. Yu Jianli Bunny, who was dressed strangely as usual, used a sweet tone to shout commands that did not have the slightest bit of deterrence, while constantly jumping up and down in the surroundings. When she encountered those who were in line a little slower, she would directly slap their buttocks, causing quite a few girls to cry out. Unlike the Class 1 students in the Class 2 students were in a separate line. Thus, Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, Ya, and the others, who knew Tsukumazu's true colors, looked at Tsukumazu, who was running back and forth in the rank I team with a cute smile on her face. They felt that this was all unreal. Let alone the girls, even Kyujuju Totoro and Kawaii Hokusaki who were also in line felt abnormally uncomfortable. Kawaii Hokusaki quickly spat out her displeasure. Seeing that guy running back and forth in our class so energetically makes me angry. It seemed that Kawaii Hokusaki hadn't forgotten that she almost died in Tsukujiri Bunny's hands. Yeah. Kyujuju Totoro also stared closely in Tsukujiri Bunny's direction. Although that guy hasn't done anything suspicious in these few months and hasn't done anything to the students in class, we still can't be careless. Obviously, Kyujuju Totoro still hadn't accepted the fact that Tsukujiri Bunny was still her class teacher and was worried that Tsukujiri Bunny would continue to do things to others. The girls who clearly heard Kyujuju Totoro and Kawaii Hokusaki's conversation all silently looked at each other. Last time in the new Blade battle, Sensei Bunny said that she was a rank V surpasser. Ivanli said with some worry. If we were to successfully ascend to level 3 today, would we be able to fight back against Teacher Bunny who is at level V? That one sentence made the other girls fall into silence. Probably not. After a while, Tachibana was the first to speak, her voice was extremely calm. We've all seen the true power of Blaze Sensei. To be honest, it's hard to believe that it's a power that's only one level higher than rank 3. The difference between rank 3 and rank 4 is huge, much bigger than the difference between other ranks. Julie nodded concisely. That is why I agree with Ba. Really? Ye asked worriedly. Even if we work together, it won't work. That won't do, right? Orange Bar shook his head. Perhaps we'll only be able to pose a threat to Tsukujin-sensei after we successfully reach rank 4. Otherwise, no matter how many people we have, we won't be a match for Tsukujin-sensei if one side can unleash the true power of Blaze while the other side can't do the same. Julie and Ye nodded, and only Ivan said with emotion. At this time, I really admire Noah. Why was he able to defeat Teacher Little Rabbit who was at rank V when he was at rank I? Hearing this, the girls all looked at each other in dismay. Noah is really strong. Julie tilted her head, making the bell on her headband jingle. He's reliable and strong, just like Dad. Jolie-chan. You couldn't help but laugh. I think there's something wrong with your analogy. Noah's words shouldn't be considered in our consideration. Don't forget, he's an exception. Orange Bar smiled bitterly. Besides, Noah also said that he just happened to comprehend a new technique. Plus, Tsukujin-sensei didn't understand the power of his moves, so he chose to meet force with force. That's why he was able to defeat Tsukujin-sensei. If they were to fight again, it's hard to say who would win. That's only limited to the past. Ivan turned his head and looked at the long line at the front of the corridor. His gem-like eyes flashed with a strange light. If Noah is able to successfully ascend to grade 4 this time. The following words didn't need to be said out loud for Julie, Orange Bar, and Ye to understand. As long as he could successfully reach rank 4 and obtain the ability to unlock the true power of Blaze, then even Tsukujin-sensei Bunny who was at rank V would probably not be Noah's opponent. Whether it was Ivan, Julie, Orange Bar, or Ye, they all believed this. As the only rank 3 in the first grade, Noah was chased away by Tsukujin-sensei Bunny before he could line up. He was also taken away by a staff member. The only one who walked with Noah was the special Lilith. According to Tsukujin-sensei Bunny, in the class, only Noah and Lilith could enjoy the privilege of not needing to line up and directly undergo the ascension ritual. The reason was very simple. It was because this time, it was related to whether or not Noah could rise to level 4 and release the true power of Blaze, 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 Blaze. Not only Noah himself, but even the school's higher-ups were very interested in what kind of power the revolver's Blaze would have if Noah successfully leveled up to grade 4. Therefore, Noah was arranged to undergo the ascension ritual alone. As for the reason why Lilith was here, it was even simpler. Because Lilith was a special. As a special and a young miss, it would be too difficult for Lilith to line up. Therefore, Lilith followed in the name of being a special. Under the guidance of the staff member, Noah and Lilith came to a spacious room. And in the room, there were two people. One was wearing glasses on his face, wearing a suit, and had a cold expression on his face. The other was a young girl wearing a dark goth loli outfit, with long black hair tied into two ponytails, as dark as the night. Lilith directly said in surprise. New Moon. Why are you also here? In the school, I hope you can call me the chairman. 99th Lunar Night said helplessly. Even if you are my friend. Got it. Although she said so, Lilith's tone still did not change as if she was chatting with a friend. Then, why are you here? Isn't the reason obvious? 99th Lunar Night no longer paid attention to Lilith. Her deep eyes stared at Noah's body, with an inexplicable expression flickering in her eyes. As an special, I am looking forward to what kind of power your soul can exert. For this reason, it would be good to take a little time to come here. Hearing this, Noah could not help but sigh in his heart. Just like what Lilith said, 99th lunar night really only cared about the abnormality of Noah's soul. In addition, whether or not Noah concealed his origin, and whether or not he intended to harm the school, as long as she could achieve the goal of 99th lunar night, 99th lunar night did not care. The chairman really has confidence in me. Thinking so in his heart, Noah's face showed a faint smile. Does the chairman think that I have no possibility of failing the sublimation? But you can't deny the possibility of success. 99th lunar night answered almost emotionlessly. Student Noah, you have to know that for a researcher, as long as there is a slight possibility, they will madly study it. This is a true researcher. After saying that, 99th lunar night stepped forward and took out a syringe without a needle from her arms. After a long while, 99th lunar night raised her head and looked at Noah. Let me personally perform the sublimation ritual for you. Noah immediately turned his head and looked at Lilith. After waiting for Lilith to nod with a smile, he helplessly shrugged his shoulders, stepped forward, and knelt down in front of 99th lunar night. Her deep eyes stared at Noah's deep pupils as 99th lunar night said one word at a time. I hope that one day you will be able to achieve absolute duo. Following this sentence, 99th lunar night raised her hand and suddenly inserted the rod-shaped syringe into Noah's neck and pressed the trigger. With a soft sound, the daybreak star pattern in the syringe rapidly decreased at a speed visible to the naked eye and was injected into Noah's body. Chapter 252. Under the gaze of everyone present, the emerald green liquid representing the daybreak star rune was injected into Noah's body with the activation of the syringe and disappeared into the test tube of the syringe. Noah only felt a slight heat at his neck, and then his whole body suddenly emitted an amazing heat. Buzz! In the buzzing sound, the pure white star rune suddenly appeared on Noah's chest and was reflected on it. Pang! Immediately, the amazing heat emitted from Noah's body rushed out of Noah's body and turned into a red flame. It instantly burned and covered Noah's whole body. Chi-chi! The red flame danced wildly on Noah's body, as if it wanted to devour everything around it, and continued to soar. The three countries, who had been on standby, had already protected 99th lunar night when she injected the daybreak star rune into Noah's body and retreated a distance. Even Lilith seemed to want to protect 99th lunar night. Together with the three countries, they stood side by side in front of 99th lunar night, but their eyes were fixed on Noah's body, motionless. Including 99th lunar night. Chi-chi! Along with the astonishing heat, the blazing red flames danced wildly in the vast space. When the daybreak star rune entered Noah's body, it was as if his whole body had been struck by lightning. He trembled fiercely and immediately closed his eyes, sinking his mind into his own body. Under Noah's sensing ability, the situation in Noah's body was like a picture, directly displayed in his mind, allowing Noah to clearly see the situation in his body. At this time, the daybreak star rune that had just been injected into Noah's body had already dispersed into extremely small nanomachines that could not be seen by the naked eye, randomly shuttling back and forth in Noah's body. Following the shuttling of these nanomachines, the daybreak star pattern in Noah's body, which had been slowly functioning like cells, also began to riot. They slowly followed the newly added daybreak star pattern and penetrated Noah's entire body. Undoubtedly, apart from the first time he implanted the daybreak star tattoo and became a grade 1 surpasser, Noah didn't feel too much pain when he ascended to grade 2 and grade 3. There wasn't even the slightest abnormality. He only felt his whole body heat up, and the ascension was a success. But this time, although there was no pain, the abnormality was extremely great. Apart from the flames that were burning wildly on the surface of his body, Noah's body was also experiencing an abnormality. The originally very normal organs, tissues, and veins seemed to have been burned by something. They suddenly twisted like fried dough twists, which was extremely strange and terrifying. However, after a while, the nanomachines that were violently moving in every corner of his body constantly passed through these twisted organs, tissues, and veins, making them quickly recover in just a short second. At first glance, this seemed to be the effect of the daybreak star pattern on Noah's body. But only Noah could sense that the daybreak star pattern was not really working on his body, but on the existence deeper in his body, his soul. That was an existence that Noah couldn't sense even with his sensing ability. However, at this moment, Noah seemed to be able to sense the existence of his soul. No. To be more precise, it should be said that he sensed the existence sleeping in his soul. There were two weapons. One was a completely black gun with pure white lines fluctuating on the gun body. Revolver. The other sword was also completely black, and there were also white patterns on the sword. It was no longer as resplendent as before. Instead, it was as dark as the abyss. Knight's sword. One of them was the blaze, which gave Noah the title of exception. The other was the blaze that only Noah knew about, even if no one else knew about its existence. The two blaze that belonged to Noah seemed to have encountered something extremely exciting at this moment, as they repeatedly vibrated. Buzz, 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 buzz. As the two blazes vibrated, the nanomachines that were rioting in every corner of Noah's body seemed to have received some kind of order. In an instant, they completely stopped and released some kind of wave-like message that others couldn't see. This kind of wave-like message reverberated like ripples, affecting every corner of Noah's body. Noah felt it. Under the influence of this message, his mind became clearer and clearer. This was the manifestation of his mind being greatly enhanced by the Dawn Star tattoo. Buzz, 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 buzz. As Noah's spirit was greatly enhanced by the Daybreak Star rune, the vibrations of the two blaze fangs that were sleeping in Noah's soul became more and more frequent. In the end, they also began to vibrate with waves of fluctuations. The fluctuations representing the Dawn Star tattoo, and the fluctuations representing the blaze suddenly met in Noah's body. In the end, as if they were being pulled, they all retracted into the two blaze. In this instant, two voices appeared in Noah's mind without any reason. Or rather, two names. Noah, who had two names in his mind, suddenly opened his eyes. Buzz. In the depths of Noah's soul, the knight's sword and revolver ablaze suddenly blossomed with a gorgeous light. It was a pale blue light. Almost at the same time, the blazing red flame that covered Noah's entire body trembled and was immediately replaced by another flame that burned from within Noah's body. Looking at the new flame that replaced the original flame, among the three people present, except for the three kingdoms, Lilith and 99 lunar nights' eyes lit up at the same time. This was because the color of the flame burning on Noah's body changed from red to pale blue. Lilith wasn't the only one who had seen this pale blue flame. As the person in charge of the Dawn organization, 99 lunar nights had seen it countless times. This was a flame that only a surpasser, who had reached grade 4, would have. When this flame appeared on the body, it not only represented that the surpasser had successfully reached grade 4, but it also represented that the surpasser's true soul had been awakened. That's right. It was exactly the same as when Moonlight Glass Rabbit used the Mad Snake Ring. It was also at this moment that Noah made a call. Blaze. The pale blue flame that covered Noah's entire body suddenly flowed like water and converged in front of Noah. Noah reached out his hand and grabbed the pale blue flame that was burning in front of him. Who? The pale blue flame immediately rotated and slowly turned into Noah's unique weapon, the revolver. Then, Noah's eyes flashed and he threw the revolver in his hand into the air. Show me. Magician. As soon as his voice fell, the revolver that was thrown into the air suddenly bloomed with an unusually dazzling light. Lilith, the 3 kingdoms, and 99 lunar nights, who was protected behind the 2 of them, were shocked at the same time. They quickly raised their hands and blocked in front of them, blocking the incoming dazzling light. Through the gaps in their hands, they squinted their eyes and stared at the revolver that bloomed with dazzling light. Under the dazzling light, the pitch-black revolver actually trembled and disintegrated into pieces. Buzz buzz. The dazzling light became more and more intense. In the center of the dazzling light, the revolver that had disintegrated into pieces was like a sphere that was spinning. Then, it scattered and gathered in 7 different places before suddenly combining. Not long after, whether it was Noah, Lilith, 99 lunar nights, or the 3 kingdoms, they all saw it. He saw 7 objects that were completely black in color and had extremely unique yet simple appearances. Chapter 253. The 7 pitch-black objects were arranged in a semicircle and suspended above Noah's head. The 7 pitch-black objects that were disassembled and reassembled from Noah's blaze were mainly circular in shape. However, on the top, bottom, left, and right of the pitch-black rings, there was an antenna-like horn protruding from each of the 4 directions. It was as if the cross inside the rings had been removed, and the line of sight could be seen through the scope of a sniper rifle. The only difference was that there were some differences in size. This was because the size of the 7 pitch-black rings that protruded from the top, bottom, left, and right weren't just the size of an eye socket, as seen from the aiming line of a sniper rifle. Instead, they were the size of half a person's body, with a diameter of 1 meter. Logically speaking, if they were to be disassembled and reassembled from Noah's blaze, it would be impossible for the fragments of a revolver to form 7 rings with 4 vertical corners and a diameter of more than 1 meter. But in reality, whether it was Noah, Lilith, 99 lunar nights, or the 3 kingdoms, they had all seen that the revolver being disassembled and reassembled into these 7 pitch-black rings. And these 7 rings were the initial form of the true power hidden in Noah's revolver's blaze. Therefore, at the same time that his blaze transformed into these 7 rings, Noah felt as if a memory had been poured into his mind out of nowhere. He knew the power of a magician, or rather, the ability. Snap! Noah did not hesitate at all. He directly extended his hand and snapped his fingers. Kacha kacha! The 7 rings that looked like the crosshairs of a sniper rifle scope with a cross removed in the middle immediately rotated. In the midst of a mechanical cracking sound, they disassembled once again. In the end, they turned into pieces of pitch-black steel plates that had the outline of wings. The tips were pointed in front of Noah. In the next second, the tips of all the pitch-black wings flashed with a touch of light. Swish, 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 swish. Without any warning, the tips of the pitch-black wings floating around Noah shot out tiny beams of light. That was a laser. Streams of laser beams cut through the space like streaks of light descending from the sky, landing on the wall in front of them like raindrops. Bang, 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 bang. Suddenly, a series of explosions sounded on the solid wall. Gravel also splashed up and fell to the ground. When the laser stopped shooting and the sound of the explosion disappeared, the wall that was covered by the laser was not only riddled with holes like a hornet's nest, but every hole was also charred black and emitted light smoke. Seeing this, Lilith, 99 lunar nights, and 3 kingdoms narrowed their eyes. It can shoot lasers. 99 lunar nights turned her head and looked straight at Noah. Is this the true power of your blaze? Hearing this, Noah glanced at 99 lunar nights and didn't say anything. He reached out his hand and snapped his fingers again. Paw! At the same time the sound of the snap echoed clearly, the pitch-black steel wings floating around Noah trembled. As if they were blown by a whirlwind, they madly danced in the air. Kacha, kacha. The familiar mechanical cracking sound rang out once again. All of the pitch-black steel wings disintegrated, and as they danced in the air, they actually formed straight heavy cannons. Then, the muzzles of the heavy cannons gathered light. Seeing the muzzles of the heavy cannons filled with light, how could Lilith and 99 lunar nights not understand what was going to happen next? Could it be? Lilith sucked in a breath of cold air and said involuntarily, "It can shoot laser cannons." Not only laser cannons. Noah, who had lowered his hand, seemed to be very satisfied with the power displayed by his blaze. It was rare for him to be so excited as he explained. Laser cannons, flame cannons, electromagnetic cannons. Frost bombs, explosive bombs, smoke bombs, light missiles. Depending on the combination method, these can all be launched. Noah looked at the shocked Lilith, and the corners of his mouth curled into a joyful arc. This is a power that has a myriad of forms and effects. A myriad of forms. Lilith murmured as if she was dreaming. A myriad of forms. 99 lunar nights' expression also changed. That's why it's called magician, right? Noah smiled and stretched out his hand. The light on the muzzles of the pitch-black heavy cannons immediately dissipated. Whing! With a trembling sound, the pitch-black heavy cannons disintegrated. The fragments didn't recombine into other forms. Instead, they floated down to Noah's outstretched hand and formed a large-caliber modified revolver. It couldn't be said to be a combination, but rather a return to its original state. The revolver in his hand turned into a blue flame and disappeared. Noah held his hand, his eyes also fluctuating with a look of surprise. It was indeed a surprise. Noah didn't think that his blaze of the revolver would actually hide the power of the magician. Depending on the combination, it could derive different forms and different effects, reproducing all kinds of powerful and strange weapons. Wasn't this the same as the magician that could continuously bring all kinds of surprises and changes? Most importantly, whether it was the laser, or the missiles, they were all transformed from Noah's mental strength. In other words, as Noah's mental strength increased, the power of the various weapons produced by the magician would also increase accordingly. If Noah released all of his power, the magician would definitely be amazing. Thinking of this, Noah was pleasantly surprised and also regretful. Of course, regretful was the strengthening effect of the Daybreak Star rune. This time, leveling up to Grade 4, gave Noah the benefits of using the true power of blaze. However, the benefits in terms of enhancement were really negligible, to the point where there was none. Therefore, Noah knew that the Daybreak Star rune could no longer bring him any strengthening effect. How could this not be regretful? However, the Daybreak Star rune brought Noah a lot of benefits, increasing Noah's overall strength by a lot, so there was nothing to complain about. What's more, this time, in addition to the revolver's real power, Noah's other blaze also had its real power activated. Thinking of the power of his other blaze, Noah's mood suddenly became a lot better. As for Lilith, 99 lunar nights, and the three kingdoms, they seemed to be immersed in the power of Noah's magician and were silent for a while as if digesting it. After a while, 99 lunar nights opened her mouth. What an amazing power! Amazing! How could amazing be used to describe it? It must be known that even if it was a surpasser, only those who had reached level 3 and above could more or less see the trajectory of a bullet. Only those who had reached level 4 could rely on their own strength to dodge a bullet. Even ordinary bullets needed to be at least level 3 to have a way to deal with them, let alone lasers, and other such existences. To put it bluntly, with the power of Noah's magician, let alone ordinary level 4, even if level V like the Moonlight Glass Rabbit or even higher existences might not be able to deal with it. For the Blaze to have this degree of power, even the highest person in charge of the Dawn organization, 99 lunar nights, had never seen it before. As expected of the exception with the special Blaze. 99 lunar nights laughed, laughing extremely happily. The soul light that you displayed, I have indeed received it. Saying this, 99 lunar nights turned around. Go back and properly prepare. Before leaving, 99 lunar nights left behind such a sentence. Soon, you will have to go on a long trip. Noah and Lilith were both stunned. Chapter 254. Yea, in the classroom, Evanli and Ya high-fived each other, their faces brimming with happiness. That's great. Evanli looked around at his surroundings and nodded in satisfaction. Everyone successfully ascended, that's great. On the side, Ya also couldn't hide her happiness and nodded. Orange Bar also had a smile on his face. Even the ahog on Julie's head was swaying back and forth, clearly in a very good mood. At the end of the semester, all of the freshmen had successfully ascended to level 2. Not a single one of them had failed. This wasn't strange. After all, after a few months of training and perseverance, those who couldn't endure it all applied to drop out of school in advance and return to the world of ordinary people. Those who stayed behind naturally all had good perseverance. Under the situation where their body and mind were fully trained, it was only to level 2, if they still couldn't successfully ascend, that would be really strange. Therefore, right now, the entire classroom was filled with a joyous atmosphere. Almost everyone had a smile on their face, some even had their arms around each other's shoulders, they were simply extremely excited. And among the group of students who obtained good results in the previous New Blade battle, and obtained an additional chance to ascend to level 2, there were a few groups that regretfully failed to ascend. Now, they had a high fever and returned to the dormitory to rest. Those who successfully ascended to level 3 had 3 groups of double-tripping blades. The first group, Evanli and Julie. The second group, Orange Bar and Ya. The third group, Kajuryu and Oki Hokusaki. Basically, they were all familiar people. And in addition to these 3 groups of double-tripping blades, there was another group of double-tripping blades that also successfully ascended. Naturally, it was Noah and Lilith. It's just that Noah ascended to level 4, and Lilith ascended to level 3. Being promoted to level 3 means that we have successfully been promoted to the 3rd grade. Furthermore, we have finally obtained a graduation certificate and the qualifications to enter the Dawn organization to work. Orange Bar also looked around at the crowd. It seems that until graduation, or even when we enter the Dawn organization, our group can stay together. Yes. Ya heaved a huge sigh of relief, causing her pair of huge and round breasts to jiggle up and down. I don't have to worry about being expelled anymore. It's great that I can graduate successfully and stay with everyone. Enter the Dawn organization to work. Ivan clasped his hands together and placed them in front of his chest as if he was grateful. His face was full of excitement. After all, Evanli's goal was to enter the Dawn organization and earn a lot of money to revitalize his family business. Now that he had successfully reached rank 3, it meant that Evanli's goal was more than 90% achieved. All he had to do was to complete his 3 years in the academy and get his graduation certificate, then he would be able to achieve his goal. Therefore, among the people present, if there was one person who was the happiest about today's successful ascension, it would definitely be Ivan. Yeah, Julie nodded in agreement. Then, she turned around and looked at Noah. It's great to be with Noah all the time. The joyful atmosphere that filled the air suddenly froze for a moment. The line of girls' eyes were cast on Noah almost at the same time. Noah, who was trying to figure out the true meaning of the words of the 99 lunar nights, didn't participate in the girls' conversation, and didn't hear Julie's words, but he felt a lot of eyes on him. He was stunned and confused. What's wrong? Hee. Lilith, who was sitting next to Noah, smiled sweetly. Everyone is just feeling that Noah is very popular. Is that so? Noah, who was under the pressure of the girls' gazes, was a little restless and smiled bitterly. Is it okay? Sigh. Looking at Noah's bitter smile, Ivanli sighed, narrowed his eyes, and looked at Noah. And then, you should tell us, right? Tell you? Noah asked in confusion. Tell you what? Does it even need to be said? Ivanli's eyes lit up. Of course, it's the true power hidden in your blaze after you've leveled up to rank 4. Hearing this, Julie, Orange, and Ya all looked at Noah with anticipation. It was obvious that they were very interested in the true power of the blaze that Noah obtained after reaching level 4. It couldn't be helped. After the Moonsight Glass Rabbit's display last time, the girls all knew how strong the true power of the blaze was. Plus, Noah's blaze was an extremely special revolver that shouldn't appear, so it was normal for them to be curious. Hurry up and tell us. Ivanli said with anticipation. Then what is it? Lilith, you also know what kind of power Noah's blaze has, right? Julie glanced at Lilith expressionlessly. Then I also want to know what the true power of Noah's blaze is. Can you not have a sense of resistance in such a strange place? Lilith turned her head with dissatisfaction. Besides, Noah is my tripping twin blades. Isn't it normal for him to understand his tripping twin blades the most? No. Julie shook her head. The person who understands Noah the most should be the person closest to Noah. So that is me. Of course not. All right. I'm scared of you guys. Seeing that Julie and Lilith were about to start their daily quarrel, Noah quickly stopped them. You guys can even fight over this kind of thing. I really have to hand it to you guys. After saying this, Noah was about to explain the matter of the magician, but at this moment, a voice came from the classroom door and stopped him. Attention. Everyone, pay attention. Takujiri Bunny clapped her hands and shouted with a sweet voice. Noah Doria, Lilith Bristow, Julie Sigtuna, Iwanri Nagakura, Tachaba, Takaya Hoi, Kyujituryu, Kukui Hokusaki, the 8 of you, now go to the chairman's office. All the people whose names were called, including Noah, were astonished. Tomorrow, everyone will come with me to participate in a field study. When they arrived at the chairman's office, 99 Lunar Nights, who was sitting behind a luxurious desk, said this sentence that shocked everyone present. Field study. Noah, who was standing at the side of the group, as if he wanted to hide in the corner and not participate, frowned. Study. This was not unfamiliar to Noah and the others. The school had long since stipulated that students who had reached rank 3 would basically be given the opportunity to participate in the study as much as possible. Because, if they joined the Dawn organization's Peace Force, they would become a Tomb Guardian, and in the future, they would need to participate in all kinds of life-threatening missions. In order to let the students be able to smoothly carry out missions after graduation, the school hoped that the rank 3 students would be able to familiarize themselves with the process of every mission, so as to avoid losing their lives when the time came. Therefore, the school would generally arrange some study for the rank 3 students, so that they could familiarize themselves with the future work. Takujiri Bunny had mentioned this matter more than once in class. And now, that day had finally arrived. But, wasn't it a bit too fast? Undoubtedly, 7 of the 8 people here had just been promoted to rank 3, right? This was the doubt in everyone's mind, including Noah. 99 Lunar Nights, however, did not pay attention to everyone's doubts and continued to speak. In the first semester of the school's first year, there were already 8 people who obtained the qualifications to study. This year, we have gathered a lot of outstanding students, and I feel very gratified. In order to let everyone make more progress, I sincerely look forward to the results of this study. Because this study was decided very suddenly, if you have any inconvenience, you can ask and apply to withdraw from this study. Next to 99 lunar nights, 3 kingdoms continued from the chairman's words. If it is really inconvenient to participate, we will also allow you to withdraw. This sentence made everyone look at each other. Chapter 255. Quit. No matter what other people thought, Noah really had the idea of quitting after hearing it. Because there was no need to participate at all, right? To put it bluntly, the purpose of the study arranged by the Academy was to allow the students to put the knowledge they had learned into practice and to increase the success rate of becoming a tomb protector in the future. And that would only happen when he joined the Dawn organization 3 years later. 3 years. Would Noah stay in this world for 3 years? To be honest, that would be a bit difficult. Therefore, for Noah, who would most likely leave this world in 3 years and go to other worlds to find a world fragment and would not become a tomb guardian, this study was really meaningless. What's more, when he was in the world of the Dark Bullet, in order to get a police license, Noah participated in various lectures and exercises. Although those lectures and exercises were related to the work of the police, and most of them were specifically targeted at primitive animals, Noah also carried out various missions in Fairy Tale. For missions, Noah had already mastered a lot of skills, knowledge, and experience. And since the Tomb Guardian was an underground character who suppressed crime, it should not be much different from the work of the Magic Guide Guild and the police. If he had the time to participate in this kind of study, Noah would rather familiarize himself with the power he obtained after reaching grade 4 in the school. The power hidden in the knight's sword and the revolver, the 2 blaze weapons. Thinking like this, when Noah was about to apply for quitting, a strange feeling suddenly rose from the bottom of his heart, making Noah's heart move. He changed the topic and asked a question. What is the main content of the study this time? The other people who had fallen into deep thought also suppressed the thoughts in their hearts and turned their gazes to the 99 lunar nights. 99 lunar nights thought for a moment, then raised his head. Originally, I shouldn't have exposed the contents of the mission without confirming that you are indeed participating in the research, but since the person who asked is an exception, I will also make an exception and make an exception. Saying this, 99th lunar nights expressionlessly began to explain the mission. As you all know, because it's a field study, the study we arrange will indeed be issued to the tomb protectors of the Dawn Organization Security Force to complete some low-risk missions. Therefore, even if it's just a study, the mission this time really does exist. Everyone nodded in agreement. In fact, even if it wasn't a dangerous mission, it was still ridiculous for a group of students who hadn't graduated yet to participate in it. However, there was no shortage of ridiculous things in this school. In other words, when they were mentally prepared, they had long accepted this level of absurdity. The mission this time is actually to protect something very important. 99th lunar night's deep eyes flickered as he spoke. Recently, the Dawn organization accidentally discovered a strange item that couldn't be analyzed. A strange item that even the Dawn organization couldn't analyze. Noah raised his eyebrows. Let alone Noah, even Lilith and the others were stunned. What was the Dawn organization? On the surface, it was an organization that conducted genetic research, but in the dark, the Dawn organization was rich in surpassers. They were active in the underground of this country and could be considered as the inner world of this country. They even had a close relationship with the country and secretly had a lot of power. Why was it that surpassers, this kind of special existence, had not been known by the people of the ordinary world until now? Why was Howling Academy, which nurtured surpassers, a school that not many people knew about? This was all because the Dawn organization had a close relationship with the country and secretly controlled the information in the dark. It could be said that the Dawn organization represented the inner world of this country and was the country's most secretive but also the largest force in this country. In addition, it was a research organization itself. With the current level of scientific development, what could they not analyze? When he heard that there was such a strange existence, the inexplicable feeling in Noah's heart that prevented him from leaving just now became stronger and stronger. It made him react and look at 99 lunar nights. What is that thing? If I knew what it was, I wouldn't use the term strange item to describe it. 99 lunar nights glanced at Noah. We call it the broken feather because its appearance is similar to a broken feather. This sentence was like a clap of thunder and also like a fuse. Not only did it ignite the strange feeling that suddenly rose in Noah's heart, it also exploded in Noah's mind. Its appearance was similar to a broken feather. And there was no way to analyze it. Why did he have such an inexplicable feeling about it? All these signs made Noah's eyes gradually brighten. Noah had enough reason to believe. The so-called broken feather that the Dawn organization found was the world fragment that he was looking for. Noah's original intuition came true once again. After entering Howling Academy, he could indeed find clues about the world fragment. As for the fact that the Dawn organization found the world fragment, Noah was not surprised. After all, the world fragment existed in many different ways. Some were like possessing Mavis' tombstone, where only Noah and Mavis could see and touch them. Some were like in the world of the black bullet, where they would automatically appear when certain conditions were met, but only Noah could see and touch them. Naturally, there would also be some world fragments that no one could see or touch. Of course, the Dawn organization wanting to analyze the world fragment was purely a joke. If they could even analyze the composition of a world fragment, then the Dawn organization could forget about creating surpassers and directly create a world. While Noah was immersed in the joy of finding the world fragment, 99 lunar nights continued to explain. The reason why I asked you to protect the broken feather is because the news of the Dawn organization accidentally obtaining a strange item that could not be analyzed has been leaked. Many famous people from all over the world have expressed their desire to visit the broken feather. 99 lunar nights looked around at everyone. Because of this reason, the Dawn organization has already decided to hold an appreciation party the day after tomorrow. At that time, famous people from all over the world will come to this country. So that's how it is. Lilith's green eyes slightly narrowed. Among them are some people who are especially interested in the broken feather and might use some crude methods to obtain it. The Dawn organization is quite famous in the industry, and they can't avoid offending people. For something that even the Dawn organization can't analyze, it's not strange for people to want to get their hands on it. 99th lunar night shook her head and looked at the students one by one. Don't think that this mission is simple. If someone really chooses to make a move on the day of the appreciation party, then that person is definitely an existence that can surpass humans. An existence that can surpass humans. Everyone suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. Ivan hurriedly said. Isn't surpassers only found in the Dawn organization? That is indeed the case. 99 lunar nights said with a smile that was not a smile. But, who told you that only surpassers can surpass humans? Everyone's face suddenly froze. Noah and Lilith looked at each other and secretly nodded. Indeed. Not only surpassers. The God Destroyer unit can also surpass humans. Of course, you don't have to be so worried. In addition to you, the members of the Peace unit will also participate in this mission. Moreover, in order to be able to take care of each other when necessary, this time you will not directly stand on the surface, but will disguise yourselves as guests of the appreciation party. After that, 99 lunar nights looked at the three kingdoms beside her. The three kingdoms immediately took out a document and walked out. If you all have decided to participate, I will now announce the identity that I have arranged for you. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.